Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the X Button, your news section. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is the curly-haired
Paul. Hey, everyone. Good to see y'all much closer this time.
Finally super close after 27 episodes.
Yes. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
And who would have thought it was just so simple of a process? I'm not tech savvy, as we could talk about on our topic episode.
Yes, you definitely are not tech savvy at all, but how you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well. I got to play a lot of fun things. I got to do all sorts of other stuff that is exciting. Got to at least one wedding, which was nice. And that was about it. How about you?
Getting so relieved that the construction that has been plaguing me for an entire year is at the border, finally, of ending. It's
close.
It's like it's the final touches now, like just final few days, and no more hearing hammers banging, no more drilling, no more dust, no more anything. I'm so excited. I can't believe this reported project that was only gonna last 3 to 4 months from back in February ballooned to an 8-month project. So you can just imagine just how like the pent-up stress I've had of having to live in the middle of a construction and not seeing it progress, or slightly seeing it progress and then not, and then yes, and then not. So I can't wait, because that's just gonna be such a stress reliever. Finally be like, my home's back and we finally have everything new. And just work, still enjoying being able to spend a couple hours in the morning outside, like in an office. Technically it makes me get out, and I had not realized that my body's aching for me to go out a lot. If I don't go out, it starts like hurting. I start like you get that inherent depression that you don't even know it's depression for just like being confined, that I hadn't realized is like it's the ever departing gift that COVID has given me from having gotten used to just being in lockdown, just for being, like trying to stay safe from the stupid virus. But then like how bad just remaining locked up also can be for your body if you're also not being active within it, which I had not until we started going on hikes. So yeah, I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited for what will be coming later, not in this episode, but in another section, because
that's true.
Our friend PJ, also known in YouTube circles as Jayohkay, who was a guest in this show when you were on vacation after E3, he's coming back, and he's joining us for like a special formatted version of the what have we been playing / topic, which is just gonna be a debate on Metroid Dread and its merits and a bunch of other stuff, because you beat it recently.
I did finally.
Yeah, you had that the end boss broke you.
I had an experience with not just that boss, but with a large part of the game, and I wanted to say some things about it. And Zach, who unfortunately won't be with us, I will be parroting his much better phrased statements on the subject, while PJ is on the other side of the fence.
And I will be somewhere in the middle. That'll be so much fun.
You'll be somewhere in the middle, but then I have a feeling I'm going to have to hold you back at certain points.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm positive on that game, but also err on the side of the people that don't like it in a way. Like, I understand where people are coming from, and I want people to like air those grievances, despite like what one may think is like the general consensus. This game is just great overall. There's more nuance, and that nuance is already picking up. Just go to the Metroid Reddit to see where that nuance is coming. So
we're going to explore that in all facets. It's not going to be a roast of Metroid, but rather an exploration of both Dread and the series itself. So
especially because just newsflash, we've also been playing those like earlier games that I got you an emulator, like push you to get an emulator, because
it was finally
stupid Nintendo doesn't give you an easy way to access those games, so you have to go the emulator route. With the exception of the original Metroid and Super Metroid. So enough preamble. That's going to be what we're going to be doing for the next section of our show. But it's a news week that's quite packed, and I'm quite pleased by it. So Paul, press X
for some news.
All right, Paul. So earlier this morning at our 7 a.m., your 8 a.m.
After very weird timing for something like this.
Yes. After a more than a year of silence after an initial showing that led to the game being delayed to this year, today 343 Industries released a 6-minute campaign overview to give an updated look to the campaign side of Halo Infinite, still scheduled to launch as a single-player only offering, alongside the free-to-play multiplayer on December 8, 2021. The overview now fully emphasizes Halo's full transition into an open world in the vein of Far Cry with a little bit of Just Cause, showcasing some improved detailing compared to last year's somewhat lackluster visuals, to put it lightly. Remember, Craig?
Oh, yes.
As well as give a small idea about how this game's story picks up from the contentious, quite apocalyptic ending to Halo 5. Whether 343 Industries will fully stick the landing in this campaign, 6 years in the making, and redeem the Halo series campaign reputation after taking a tumble in Halo 5, remains to be seen. Keep in mind, being able to play this open world campaign fully co-op is scheduled to happen a few months after launch. Paul, do you wake up and see that thing?
I did.
What do you
pretty
think?
much immediately, as soon as I was up, I think one of y'all had already sent the message over in our chat. So as soon as I could, I sat down and I watched it on my computer screen, not my phone this time, because I wanted to give it a good shot. And this game looks fantastic.
Yes.
Just to start.
Just like
I love the changes they've made. Yeah, the lighting, fantastic. The feeling of the movement, the dash concept was great. And then I got into that realization because I thought that they had said they were straying away from like a full open world, but this looks like a full open world.
Absolutely.
Complete with spawning vehicle stations and stuff like that.
Straight out of Borderlands. That feels like the garage mechanic of Borderlands.
It really does. Now that you mention it, that is exactly straight up there with him dropping off little vehicles and things for you. It feels like they're taking a step back from the serious, heavily explained everything in the lore of Halo, and kind of pulling it back and being like, all right, this is a video game, we're going to let you have fun. And I respect it, because Halo really needs to change up what they're doing. They went way too serious with 5, and then video gaming in the wrong places as well with 5.
Not like Master Chief only being the character you play for 3 missions out of 15.
But that's neither here nor there. I mean, I'm glad that Chief is back 100% in this. I love the gameplay feel of everything, the brutes. I'm glad that they have elites as well, because I was like, man, I love brutes, but fighting those elites is just something different.
By the way, do you notice their tongue-in-cheek reference to Craig?
Did they?
There's and all enemies, and then they showed the Craig dropping with full armor. So that was like, that's awesome.
I thought it was just like, oh, it's old enemies like brutes, we've seen them before, and then they showed new enemies, which honestly they just looked like some kind of cherub version of the drones from Halo 3. So I was
plus
like,
new enemies.
Yeah, they said new enemies, but then they showed like those little dudes that looked like demons from Doom Eternal, which this game looks very similar to.
Yes.
I'll knock them just a little bit on the fact that it feels different in a great way, but also like the upgrades you have were a little weird. Maybe I just need to see more of that. Because that means that there's going to be some kind of progression system to keep track of, which on one hand, that means that you'll have to seek out fights, which is nice, because if you don't have any reason to fight any enemies, it kind of defeats the gameplay loop. So I think they probably had to do that, especially if they're making it as open world as they are. I just hope that they also funnel it a little bit for some of the missions to make it linear as well.
Yeah, like this definitely feels like they went back to Halo Combat Evolved, looked at the idea of the second mission.
Yes.
And they were like, let's make an entire game off that. And Combat Evolved is like the most wide open Halo to date. Yes. Like, it's so funny that everything else, then you go to 2, 3, a little bit ODST, because ODST also tied with, like, I think this is taking both Combat Evolved and ODST vibes, because ODST is the only one that has toyed with open world, because of the new Mombasa like hub that you can kind of do things out of order, explore. So they're finally embracing that, because Halo 4 and 5 were a little bit more traditional, and obviously with 5 with the very heavy co-op feel to it, that you always have 4 players all the time, kind of like Republic Commando. Like I once mentioned, you the director of the Republic Commando worked on Halo 5, so he brought kind of like that feel to that game. So my big concern is the environment that they've shown. Is that all there is? That Pacific Northwest trees, woods. It better, because that's the thing. I follow this big Halo fan. He's Chris Reagan is his name, because he made this big, very long video like back in last year about like he made he was called Make Halo Great Again, and he was like talking about the design philosophy of what Halo used to be, which was its sandbox driven like craziness, with the way that you can manipulate its environment, and you kind of toying that made that game infinitely replayable. So like he has a very interesting understanding of Halo that made me like appreciate it in a different way compared to, and made me understand why Halo 4 and 5 games I like are so like reviled like by the general community, and understanding why, because those games like completely decided to go for prettier instead of fun, you know, like the fun that Halo's defined. That's why those multiplayers, with the exception of 5, Halo 4's multiplayer died like really quickly, because it tried to be like Call of Duty in a way. So he pointed out, he's like, you have a campaign trailer, if you want to like make everything cool, you show different environments and all that, and all he saw was Forerunner technology and just woods, and that's fine, because it doesn't look bad, especially compared to last year, that it had a very last gen feeling to it, like in spots that it doesn't like
feel much better.
It does feel much better. It's not like a graphical benchmark, like look at how beautiful this game is to like showcase the machine. I don't think it looks like that, but it looks like a pretty and it doesn't need to. Halo never need. I said that in our stream for when we're playing Halo 3, which you can see now in our channel, Halo 3 Part 1. Back in 2007, there was always this discourse that Halo 3 didn't look pretty enough compared to Gears of War and the upcoming Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare in that same year. It was like, this doesn't feel like the kind of game that Microsoft pushes for, like, look how great our games look. But the art style that they picked, and the reasons why they picked it, is why it has made Halo 3 more timeless than those other games, especially now that they has been uprest. It's like true. The art we talked, you kind of asked me when we were playing, is like in the remaster they did for Halo 3, Halo Master Chief Collection, they barely did anything. They kept the game as is, other than just bumping resolution and frame rates, but the game as it was, like, that wasn't touched. So I feel like this is like the next evolution of that, because the art style resembles that Bungie trilogy more than Halo 4 and 5. That was like more busy, more like, look at all this light, look at all these particle effects. Here's what's hilarious. They got the art director from, or like some art people from Metroid Prime for Halo 4 and 5. And there's a lot of Metroid Prime in those games.
I see it now.
So
look at the Forerunner dudes, the Sentinels and whatever they were called.
Yeah, and I say that because I've been replaying Metroid Prime. Like, I have it here. Look, like, I've been like playing it again. And that's what struck me. Is like, that's a very distinct art direction. And I like that art direction, and I liked it in Halo 5, but it's not Halo. The Halo like art style is like what we see now in Halo Infinite. So I hope that there's some surprises, that we see snow levels, the desert levels, or more variation than just the woods. I think that's gonna, because if not, it could be visually stale. And I was reading some discourse that some people are kind of not feeling the idea that Halo is Far Cry now, especially in a year where Far Cry 6 came out. So I understand that, because it's like, this is their first open world game, and Far Cry has been doing this for forever. Will they be able to capture that? Obviously, Halo has its own sandbox, but it's baby's first open world. I mean, look at Horizon Zero Dawn, which we're going to be talking a little bit about later. Like, Horizon Zero Dawn was baby's first open world for Guerrilla.
Right.
So you nail some things, and some things can get better. So who knows?
But I will say, as my closing thoughts on it, I think this could be the Halo Infinite walks, so that, I know they kind of wanted to make it a live service almost.
Yeah,
but
this is going to be Halo. Yeah, everything is just this game.
Right. So anything after this is the benchmark. This is the base. This is the like whatever you begin with, and then you're going to build off to all these cool things. So maybe I'll give them a pass if it's only this one biome, if it's only this one kind of self-contained area, and they tell a decent story, and then everything after that is like, oh, this is all like in the frost biome. This is going to be like a new desert biome. This is going to be in whatever. And they can really expand that concept. I mean, we talked about Destiny. Look at the Witch Queen doing this cool, like, haunted swamp kind of biome thing. And it's a fully new thing. And because you set up the good benchmark of how Destiny plays, you can do something like that. So I'm thinking maybe if they get it right with this and it's popular enough, then they can just continue making cool building blocks.
I would hope that. It would make me sad that the live service model will basically cut us right now from like more diversity, but there's also this is notorious. It's like this game has taken 6 years to make because it has been a nightmare for 343 to develop, because they had to develop a new engine, completely scrap all plans they had after Halo 5, because Halo 5 failed. But you haven't finished it. We'll eventually finish it because we're doing that playthrough. That game feels like it's leading to something, but the reception to it was so bad, it like hurt the Halo brand in campaign mode, that they had to rethink a lot, and it took them this long. And of course they had to like face plant themselves with the COVID of it all. So yeah, I'm optimistic after last, let's put it this way, after we saw the campaign last year, I was like so worried about it, because I was expecting to be more impressed than I was from this. There's something wrong, and they confirmed it. They delayed it after they got clowned to oblivion. So now, and also now I understand why there's no campaign co-op. I understand it a little bit more now. That would be harder to like really kind of having to QA that in the scope.
Oh, absolutely.
I can see why they need more time.
I absolutely understand that. I would almost expect it to be like, hey, you can only play co-op in certain situations. Like you can't just go all out, because imagine playing a co-op Far Cry. That would be a nightmare to code for them. So
yeah, Far Cry 4 and 5 can allows that. But it's kind of like, it's weird the way they allows it. You can't even play campaign. They do have it. Like you can like toy around in the world, but I don't remember you can play campaign missions. That was the only thing that it couldn't allow you. So it was segmenting itself. So maybe they're trying to figure that out. But yeah, it's still coming on December 8th, coming to Game Pass. So I'm excited for that. Number 2, Guerrilla Games is giving an updated look at some of the quality of life improvements they've implemented into Horizon Forbidden West. Still scheduled to release on February 18, 2022. By the way, they posted this literally the second Microsoft posted the Halo thing. That was hilarious. Yeah, because the thing was at 7 and 8. This was at your 8, my 7. This was literally also at my 7. So I was like, huh, that's so funny.
Do you think they did that on purpose?
Absolutely. Okay. Like you're absolutely like, there's no way you just post this like at the day that your competitor like showcases the campaign of their biggest game ostensibly from the year. They immediately counterpunch like at the same second. Oh, competition is awesome. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Their big improvements have been focused on the world itself and the player interaction within it to provide a more dynamic feel to the open world and the player. Editorial note, clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild. They're touting that what they call their free climbing system, which calls to mind what the Assassin's Creed series provides in regards to interactive climbable environments compared to the limited Uncharted-like options from the original game. Remember, if you wanted to climb something in Horizon Zero Dawn, you needed to find like the yellow things to climb, so you're very static in the world.
Very true.
Other emphasized additions include the Polecaster, aka the grappling hook, and the Shield Wing, aka Breath of the Wild's float down, whatever you call that cloth you use to float down.
It was a sail from Wind Waker.
Exactly. So that's basically their version of that. And how you can combine the movement options for both traversal and combat at your whim. You can see a GIF that they posted with this story that they posted on Twitter that showcases just that Aloy just sliding down from beneath one of the robots using the Polecaster to pull herself up to a pole and then jumping from that pole, shooting an arrow, and then just climbing down with the thing. That looks pretty amazing. I'll say that.
Gorgeous.
And other details include full DualSense support throughout each gameplay mechanic, 12 Valor Search attacks, supers, with each having 3 levels apparently.
Wow.
A dynamic world. So you see that sometimes she does like the alt movements when so she has 12 of those now. That's completely new from the first one.
Yeah.
A dynamic world where machines and enemies can fight in groups. Interestingly enough, when I thought, I was like, didn't they do that already? But no. Either you fight groups of robots or groups of enemies, or you see some enemies fight robots, but not together. Yeah. So that's the difference.
Okay. And then what was that last thing that they had?
Plenty of new weapons plus some returning ones. Maybe you'll finally get your automatic weapons that you so crave all the time, even though it doesn't make sense. And also that Aloy can wall jump on top of like all the movement options that we listed. I cannot wait for this Horizon game, because especially after having replayed this game again this year, just hearing all of this is basically going to give that game the kind of verticality it almost screamed it needed from the first game. As much as I like that first game, it's like you almost feel always stuck on the floor all the time. Yeah. So what do you think of all this stuff and some of the few things that you got to see before you can read the whole article?
Yes. So I did watch the video that you mentioned and posted. So that was awesome. I loved every little clip of that, because every second was packed with something new that they haven't done before, or an improvement on something that they have. Which one of my biggest things was I did not like either the design or the way the spear operated, because it just felt limited. The bow, it was nice to have different kinds of arrows, but after a while I got a little tired of just like your bow and your spear, that's all you get. Which that's just a personal thing. I don't even want to like blame people for liking that, because I appreciate it. But whenever I'm playing a certain game for a little while, one of the things, as you know, is I like to change my outfits and I like to change my weapons. And when Horizon Zero Dawn wasn't allowing me to do either of those very easily. I mean, I could, but there weren't many variations.
Exactly. I was going to say that there's very little. There's like an automatic weapon that's like a staff. That's a little machine gun in the first Horizon, but you needed to find it.
Right.
And it has like very limited. Yeah. No, not quite a pickup. It was something you can have in your arsenal that you can even use to tear down robot armor. I didn't even remember you could do that until I replayed it recently. I was like, oh man, I wish Paul knew about this one.
That's another thing. Like, I missed all sorts of stuff. Like,
you play that game wrong.
Apparently,
you play that game wrong. So yeah, like, and them emphasizing they're gonna do that, guaranteed you're gonna get something for that. Because yes, I'm a fan of bow and arrows. I'm a simp for archers. Yeah. I have that pretty big established, so that wasn't a problem for me. But I can see where it could be a problem for other one that wants a little bit more variety, and it seems that variety is what they're adding here. This seems like it's going to be Assassin's Creed 2 to Assassin's Creed 1.
Yeah,
a great first attempt.
That fantastic process. Just actually great that you mentioned that, because I remember when I would play Assassin's Creed 1, it was nice because you had your sword and your dagger and like your throwing knives and whatever, but there wasn't a whole lot. But then Assassin's Creed 2, you had your heavy swords, you had your spears, you had like hammers. All sorts of different, your hammers. You could throw your heavy weapon.
The improvements in the world, the improvements that you can do within the world, that is compared to the very limited things that you were meant to do in the world on 1.
Yeah. And so just, it's night and day what they're doing. I love the shield wings design. It feels really cool, the way she holds on to it, the wall running and all the other little things that add to that freedom. Because I mean, one of the favorite things about it was Assassin's Creed Unity's ability to free run like kind of anywhere, and the animations followed that. And while I loved the animations for Horizon Zero Dawn, it was very limited in its platforming abilities with that. So it sounds like they're just adding one thing after the other of things that I've complained about on this show. So y'all can pull the receipts for that if you want.
Yeah. I can pull them. I've been re-listening our all episodes.
Oh yeah. I'm satisfied with what I'm seeing so far, and honestly, if they continue with that, I will probably pick this up and I will love it. However, it's also in the middle of February, the Hunger Games Bloodbath of 2022 that we're gearing up to.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, it's gonna like one of these games is gonna blink from that February event.
They have to, but
they have to blink.
I hope that Horizon is not one of them,
No.
unless it moves itself
Up.
forward
Yeah.
to January. I'll take
In
that.
fact, like it's done that in the UK. It was supposed to come out in March, and then they moved up to February. So it could happen.
I mean, I've seen it. Like they'll say, "Hey, we're moving it up like a week or 2 weeks." Or
They
something.
could,
I'm
because
like,
in February
all
10th, I
right.
don't see anything that I know of. I was like,
Yeah.
because it's coming in February 18th, so a week earlier. I think the week before that is Dying Light 2, which was supposed to be a December game that got bumped.
They
So-
could destroy Dying Light without even trying. I think, because I don't even know if I want to get Dying Light 2.
Yeah, that's a wait and see for like reviews, like it was for this other game, number 3. Reviews for Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy game are live today, courtesy of the game's embargo lifting a day before the game's full release. We rarely do this kind of stories, but it just so happened to land today. That makes it worth noting. And also worth noting because this was a game that, again, I was like, I don't know about that.
Same.
Let's wait. Currently sitting at an 81 aggregate score on Metacritic, the Guardians of the Galaxy video game seems to be enjoying a warmer reception compared to the previous Marvel game by Square Enix, Marvel's Avengers, which ended with a Metacritic aggregated review score of 67 and has been continuously lambasted since launch over its poor handling of its games as a service, something that has continued even with the mostly well-received War for Wakanda mini expansion from this past August. Here's what some notable reviews are saying for Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 1. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is another convincing example of how much fun a linear, no-frills single-player campaign can be. An 8 out of 10 from IGN. Guardians of the Galaxy offers a fresh take on the familiar theme filled with heart and humor. An 8 out of 10 from the YouTube group EC Allies. They do great reviews. They're the game trailers people that moved to there.
Oh.
So, game trailers died, they became EC Allies, if you didn't know. So, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is the biggest surprise of the year. Polygon recommends from website Polygon. If you enjoy the banter in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, it's non-stop in this game and it's every bit as fun. Tweets Andrew Ryan, a reviewer of the Game Informer review that gave it 8.5 out of 10. And here's my favorite. Guardians of the Galaxy will make you lament the fact there isn't an equivalent game for Iron Man or Thor or wherever. Do you imagine a parallel universe where alongside your MCU Blu-rays are a row of games just like this one? I strongly recommend it. Our buddy Skill Up.
That's amazing, honestly.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting any of that. Something that you said, do you want to say that little thing that you heard, or you want me to?
Yeah, you say it, because I don't know if I said.
One thing that we recently heard from Alejandro actually pointed out to me is that it plays like Mass Effect.
Yes.
And that caught my attention because all of a sudden it makes kind of sense with the way it was, because I was under the understanding that it played a little more like it was third person, but it was more like a Marvel Ultimate Alliance, like co-op attacks. You just keep kind of doing the same thing. You're mashing the buttons and that's about it. But when they said Mass Effect, I like all of a sudden it kind of reframed all the gameplay that I've seen of it and made me a lot more curious.
This morning I kept hearing more like the longer form reviews from like different groups to kind of hear what they were saying. Someone compared it to like a mix of Mass Effect, Uncharted, and Marvel Spider-Man. Like all together, but not quite as good as all of those. But
Okay.
it assimilates them. So it's like, oh, this is like this. Maybe not as great as this, but it's like this. Oh, this is like this. It's not as great as this, but it's more like this.
But if it's still good, then
Yeah.
hey.
No, I think that to me the more important thing is that it's like what the IGN review said. It's another convincing example of how much fun a linear, no-frill single-player campaign can be. So that means not a campaign that you have to grind for hours
Yes.
apart. Like no frills is like
Yes.
just like it's Uncharted.
Yes.
Yeah, like Uncharted is a no-frill single-player campaign. You just
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
We barely get one of those. So this has like climbed up now. For whenever I get some money, I think I might pick it up, because I always even said that even if this game was just 7s, I would get it because I just want more Marvel games to support that. It's great to see that this has been warmly received, especially after knowing and understanding how lambasted Avengers has been, despite me liking it at its core. But it's so funny, it's like everyone in those reviews even said, if only this has just been a campaign, and if they had fleshed out this campaign, it would have been great. But the service element completely killed it. This doesn't have a service element. look how more warmly has been received. So I'm excited for that now. Number 4. Now that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has been basically put out to pasture with its final DLC character release, it seems this is the right time for competitors to rise up to the occasion and enter the battle. Like Warner Brothers reportedly working on a Smash Bros. Style fighter called Multiverses. Let me put it this stuff. Multiverses. How has not anyone picked up that name? That name.
I am honestly a little surprised because that really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, because from multiverse, it's
yeah,
featuring characters from its various IPs. According to Video Games Chronicle, where the story was corroborated by VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb, who commented on the veracity of a Reddit post leaking the existence of this game, this is going to be a game where you can have the characters like Gandalf, Batman, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Tommy and Jerry, and others fight in the same match. The Reddit leak had originally said this game was the new game by Mortal Kombat developer NetherRealm, but Grubb refuted that, citing his August report where he found out NetherRealm is already working on a Mortal Kombat 12 instead of an Injustice 3, breaking off the tradition where the studio has been alternating between Mortal Kombat and Injustice every 2 years, citing that they did that due to the uncertainty over their future with parent company WB Games. Just last year, they were briefly put in auction alongside other WB Games studios like Rocksteady, Traveler's Tales, like Monolith, by parent company AT&T in their effort to shed off most of their massive debt. AT&T had billions in debt, and they just wanted to cut by trying to sell all these studios.
Wow.
Then they were like, nah. Now there's the uncertainty on what's next for Warner Media now that AT&T shed them off for an upcoming merger with Discovery that I told you back in May. And word is that some pieces of WB Games will remain with AT&T and others will go with Discovery. Oh. So supposedly they're working on Mortal Kombat 12 NetherRealm because they're like, we own this. We don't want to be working on a DC game in the chance that then we're sold off to like this or we remain with AT&T that no longer has Warner Brothers, and DC's Warner Brothers. So yeah, that was an interesting one. But Multiverses, before we go to that, like a Smash Bros. Like game where you can play as Shaggy. I just love the idea that the Shaggy meme from 2019 led to this. Can you believe it?
I'm kind of glad for it because it revitalized, I think, a lot of Scooby-Doo's media, because everyone now filters everything that Shaggy's ever said through the eyes of the meme. Oh, shoot. Anyway, so it was able to filter everything through the eyes of the meme. And I think it revitalized a lot of Scooby-Doo through that. Merging this with everything else that Warner Bros. Has, because they have a stupid level of IPs that they can pull from for this, would be crazy.
They own so much. And I think if you watch Space Jam 2, a Warner Brothers thing,
yes,
you can see how much they owned.
I think you're absolutely right there. And man, I don't know. It just sounds like the sky's the limit with this series. If it's really what is going on, I would love to see how it plays. I don't know if it's going... I feel like they're not going to go the platform fighter route, even though that would play very well. NetherRealm is so knowledgeable about that specific type of fighting game that I'm wondering if...
But they made the point, this is not NetherRealm working on Multiverses.
Oh, okay. So I think you lost me somewhere in the middle of that.
It was a long one. So yeah, NetherRealm is working on Mortal Kombat 12, according to Jeff Grubb. The leak said that this Multiverses was the next NetherRealm game. We don't know who's making it yet. We just know that NetherRealm now is working on Mortal Kombat 12 instead of Injustice 3.
So this is somebody else under the WB Games logo.
Yeah. And NetherRealm is doing Mortal Kombat 12 just as a safety net because they don't want to work on a DC game and the chance they get sold off. Because then that's going to be a licensing nightmare. So
absolutely.
Makes sense why we haven't heard anything from like an Injustice 3 at this point. Despite Ed Boon being at DC Fandom to promote the Injustice movie, I was like, at that point I was like, something's up, because this could have been the point where like, and we're working on Injustice 3. So
yeah, I don't know, like I get nervous and a little jittery whenever I hear this stuff about like parent companies and
Mm-hmm.
sell-offs and stuff like that, because it's making me realize that the things that come from some of these developers are going to be heavily changed and curbed by what they have access to
Mm-hmm.
and also what they're allowed to make. So if some game company wants that's under this umbrella wants to make a thing, and then AT&T's over here like, no, we don't want to deal with that,
Mm-hmm.
so then it's dead in the water. So I worry about stuff like that sometimes.
That's always the nightmare of licensed products because of something like this.
Yeah.
Like licensing is the reason why so many games don't come back, like, and see the light of day again. So we'll see. I'm excited to see if Multiverses actually looks like a Smash Bros. Because we have the Nickelodeon Brawler. I don't remember how the name of that Nickelodeon game is called, but it's basically Smash Bros. With Nickelodeon characters. And it's not horrible, and people like it.
It's surprisingly robust, as I would call it. I follow Maximilian Dude, who does daily fighting game videos, and he's been going off about this. And he's like outside of that whole realm and hasn't known anything about Nickelodeon since like probably the most modern thing would be Korra and Aang, who are in the game as well. But it's like the stuff that you can do in that game is made by people who are really obsessed with Smash Bros. Because you can like dash cancel, you can do like really weird blockchains and stuff that are only made by people that really know what they're talking about with platformer fighting games. So it's and I think they said it was rollback netcode, which is like a crazy thing for fighting game in that universe, because it lets you play with just about anybody in the world, so it keeps the player base a lot more active. Same thing with Guilty Gear Strive, and it's not a very common thing either.
So what you're saying basically is that that's a good framework to put your fighting game on.
It is a very good framework to have, and it's going to make sure that the game gets played by a lot of people for a long time.
Considering these are studios not named Nintendo that probably understand that a little better than anyone, I am excited for the idea of actual true competition showing up again in this space, because someone tried once. It was called PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. That game failed. And we quickly got put... It was basically got all geldered in literally 3-4 months after the game was released, so...
In their defense, I feel like the game wasn't really polished well enough to even compete, or have the right style. You know, like Smash Bros. Kind of unifies the style somewhat if they have to. The Nintendo Nickelodeon game is also doing that as well to merge everything, but PlayStation All-Stars just kind of had everyone in their own style just thrown together. It just didn't look right, didn't feel right.
And on top of that, it tried to be Smash Bros, but not really. It tried to be Smash Bros 90%, but then it tried to differentiate itself in a 10% by the only way that you score in that game is by building a meter and using like a super from like the right
and
shoulder.
That's the only way to get kills. So it's like,
so that broke a lot of people because then it's like, oh well, then what's the point of just fighting if you're just about building the meter and using that? So I understand why they would do that, because they didn't want to just be like they're just copying Smash Bros like 100%. But I was like, you should have, because then probably the game would have been alive. And what's funny is that everyone during the PS4 generation is like, bring back All-Stars. We think now this is the right time for you to bring this back. And even in PS5, because there's now a legacy. You're now in nostalgia territory with the PS5. Just look what you did with Astro's Playroom and all the tiny little tongue-in-cheek references to PlayStation's history that you can feel something about it. Now would have been the time for that. So, and the good thing is Smash is dead. Like, let's just call it. Smash is finally dead after Sora.
I don't even know what they're going to try doing after that. But one thing that you actually bring up a good point is, just like we mentioned on a previous episode, that the changing of the guard is now happened. And we got a whole new range of mascots from Astro. We've got the new design for Kratos. We've got Spider-Man. We've got Aloy. We've got like so many people. I mean, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel, taking like Big Daddy from BioShock, and I think the dude from Killzone and stuff. I was
like Radek.
This is stuff that hasn't been around for
And not only that,
years.
then what's funny is that so many iconic PlayStation characters are in Smash. They could have been in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale. There's that amazing image that PJ sent us that had Sora, Solid Snake, Cloud, Sephiroth. Who else? I don't know, but all of these like PlayStation, like
it's just so. I mean, I keep wanting to say Banjo-Kazooie, but that was Xbox. But like literally, so many of these people, no, that was Nintendo as well. Dang it.
Yeah, but there was many. It was just so funny. It's like all these characters could have been like if they had also grabbed Crash Bandicoot, that would have been like an extra coup, because that was another one that surprisingly wasn't in PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale, like a celebration of PlayStation at the time. But let's also remember, PlayStation, like Sony and PlayStation during the PS3 era, never did anything right. So of course they would always have good ideas and not execute properly. But hopefully maybe this will also push them to maybe give All Stars Battle Royale another go properly. If Nickelodeon could do it properly, and we assume this multiverses one is just gonna go Smash Bros all the way, also with a bigger roster of characters. Who knows? Number 5. Very excited and trepidatious about this news. After what has been almost 8 long years of contempt for the franchise and its audience asking for another game, it looks like it's finally happening. Splinter Cell is finally coming back. According to our beloved Video Games Chronicle, it looks like Ubisoft is finally relenting and has finally put a Splinter Cell game in development after ignoring this series since 2013's Splinter Cell Blacklist. The game is supposedly early in development, and it's not being made at a studio outside. I mean, it's being made at a studio outside the usual traditional Ubisoft Montreal, which were the ones that made the original game from 2002, 2005's ultra beloved third game, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, 2006 PS2 and Xbox versions of Double Agent, and 2010's series reimagining Splinter Cell Conviction. Other entries were made by other Ubisoft subdivisions, with Ubisoft Shanghai being responsible for the series' first direct sequel, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, in 2004, and the contentious 360 PS3 version of Splinter Cell Double Agent in 2006 and 2007. Ubisoft Toronto were the developers responsible for Blacklist. Whether any of these studio offshoots are going to be responsible for this new game remains to be seen, as well as what kind of shape the game will take in the homogenized development culture that has plagued Ubisoft the last couple of years. When I saw that, I had to do the blinking eye take. I was like, is this real? Is it finally happening? After telling Ubisoft to F themselves after the Ghost Recon Frontline, which was it a week after it was released that it got shelved indefinitely? I don't remember. It was quickly revealed and shelved.
That's right. Because they said, like, okay, we want to make it as good as possible. We're going to pull this back a little and make sure it's whatever you need it to be, or whatever they say. They always put weird marketing tactics in there. I am not excited about this.
Because of that last part, right?
I want to be so excited. I want to be like, finally, they realized it. But it's the fact that they waited this long to even see the value in it that makes me understand that they don't actually understand the value themselves.
I would counter that they did. They just put him in every freaking game that they had. Literally every freaking game. Instead of making an own.
They doled this man out to other series for some reason. But that's exactly what I'm thinking, because they don't understand the amazingness of just a simple single player stealth game.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have to add all their bells and whistles like they always do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly why they didn't make a Splinter Cell game. They made it a Ghost Recon game. They made it a Rainbow Six Siege game. And they made it all the other games that they could have possibly made, including like the weird chibi mobile game that they tried for like 2 seconds and then gave up on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, y'all are wasting money at this point. But anyway, all that is to say that they're taking the character that they know people like, but they don't want to deal with everything around him, which is like a cerebral stealth shooter.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want any of that because they don't think anyone likes it, so they're gonna like make it into whatever they want. Now they're like, oh, okay, we'll do the series. I think they're still going to take that core and just toss it out the window.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna surround our lovely man in all of this dumb stuff and make it into like a Call of Duty or I don't know what they want to do, but it's not going to be what we want,
Yeah,
honestly.
it's like if this has been announced, I'm trying to think, when did Ubisoft finally like jump the shark with homogenization? I think it was 2018. Had he been announced like in 2017, I would have been out of my like over the moon.
Absolutely.
At this point, because now it has come after a year that I have lambasted Ubisoft like left and right over them trying to turn Assassin's Creed into a live service game. What they're doing with that X-Defiant abomination that was basically the most generic looking game possible. Them shoving Ghost Recon into a battle royale genre. It was the current Ubisoft that is right now is like, you had made the point that maybe we were getting all of this because this was some of the things that were put in development by the dude that got kicked to the bucket, like the Serhi Gasco. So maybe now we're finally reaching that point where like, okay, we had to wade through the garbage because we already had all of these things in development, because those games take time. They are not made like we're pooping out a battle royale in 8 months. Here it is. No, it takes years. Look at Apex Legends. I mentioned that in that episode that game took 2 years to make. So there's always like a 2-year lead at least to make those games. So now I think we're finally maybe moving at a time where maybe Ubisoft is finally getting it, but they have shed so much goodwill. They have shed so much like cachet about all the stupid moves that they made, to the point where there was a Star Wars game announced by them this year, and there were some people that the first open world Star Wars game, BTW, think about that, we've never had one of those, yet people are like, it's Ubisoft. They've already made their bet. Everyone knows what a Ubisoft game is, and that sucks because they were my favorite because of the diversity that they had. This is a wait and see for me. I want to see what abomination they pull up, if it's gonna be like, because their live service is everywhere. So are they gonna try to make this also live service? Who knows? I mean, let's just remember, everyone's just loving why Guardians of the Galaxy is reviewing so well, specifically because they said it's no frill single player campaign. So maybe one time Ubisoft will finally remember there's a market for that. But hey, I'm excited to see that at least a ray of light is coming from there. But it's bittersweet. Someone call it a monkey's paw. You finally get your Splinter Cell, but you're getting it with this Ubisoft.
Yeah,
that sucks. So number 6, because we seem to talk about the existence of this trilogy every other week, Rockstar has finally confirmed that the Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy Definitive Edition, the worst possible name possible for this, is officially coming out on November 11th, so a few weeks from now. Sporting an updated cartoony look, keeping in the spirit of the original trilogy, and also claiming to have an updated GTA 5 style control scheme and feel, as well as quality of life improvements like the chance to insta restart for missions, fixing a long-standing GTA problem, by the way, among other things. More interesting is the news that Grand Theft Auto San Andreas by itself is being carved out and offered on Game Pass when the trilogy releases on November 11th, with Grand Theft Auto 3 being carved out and offered on PS Now by itself on December 7th.
Huh. So that's, I must have misheard this earlier, because I think I had heard when you said that it was the whole trilogy coming to Game Pass. I see.
Just San Andreas.
That makes more sense, because I was like, this is such a weird thing for them to show up with and then give the whole thing out immediately to both PlayStation Now and Game Pass. So that makes more sense. Also makes more sense they would pick San Andreas to be the one, and then just throwing GTA 3 to PS Now for like the 12 people that use it. I'm excited about this. I like it. I appreciate what they're doing. I was on the fence last time we talked about this, with the idea that they were taking away all other versions of the series to replace it with this. This is a very big change. I respect them for doing it. Of course, it's their own stuff, but I also think, once again, we got to talk about protecting gaming history at this point. Because GTA is such a massive series, you should still have versions of it available to the public until you risk the point of losing all of that. I mean, just look at what we deal with the Star Wars series and the special editions and all that. Some people just want their own version of it that they grew up with, not the new version that's just very different, I would say, from the original. So, um, I'll pick this up on sale. Play San Andreas on Game Pass, absolutely, but I don't know. I think it's a little worrying sometimes because Rockstar, not like Ubisoft, but also like they don't really understand what their own people really like. They just kind of follow the numbers,
Hmm.
and that's what kind of worries me.
Yeah, remember the people that were supporting Red Dead Online were put in this. They're the
Yeah.
ones that made this and left Red Dead Online basically unsupported. Like,
There's like 50 people maybe working on all of Red Dead Online, I'm sure, because it takes them so long to do anything. All they can really do is add their little like passes for some stuff, and that's just a nightmare. I don't want to talk
so
about that.
I get where you're coming from. At the same time, I look at the work they've done to this, and it's rare for me to see a remake or remastering in this way that actually I feel stays to the spirit of the original. Like, it everyone feel like GTA, especially with 4 and 5, everyone sees it as this proto-realistic game that you can do wacky stuff. You forget GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas were cartoony to a fault, and they kept that cartooniness with like the way they remastered it. And as much as I like the idea of like trying to maintain like at the original version of these games, like the objective reality is that these Grand Theft Auto games don't hold up in gameplay, like in any way, shape, or form. And them going to add GTA 5 style control scheme and feel, the best feel in GTA, by the way, to these old games, that's a lot of good work and a good way for people to really experience these games, especially because it seems that they showed the before and after.
Yeah.
They have kept basically everything. So this is the one area where I'm like, I see where you're coming from, but now I also get why they kind of want to remove those other ones, because this is the rare game. It's not like Metal Gear Solid 2 that even in its archaicness, you can still kind of play in a way. You can still like try to put yourself in the mind of what used to be there. But GTA games used to control so horribly, but everything else around it was like so revolutionary that people didn't care. But now we live in a world where all of that has been taken care of. The quality of life exists. Something that we're going to talk about, quality of life, in our next segments. Yeah, in a few days, or for everyone that watches the full episode altogether. But yeah, it's like I was more surprised by how it looked, and I think I found it interesting that Grand Theft Auto 3 has been given to PS Now, but it makes sense because this is the 20th anniversary Grand Theft Auto 3, a game that originally came out on PS2. So for like celebration purposes, they're giving it to PlayStation. But then GTA also, San Andreas, it's considered the best one from that era. Everyone says their favorite is Vice City, but I would also make the argument that San Andreas was the more fully featured. And Xbox gets to play it, so I never played it beyond the first few hours because I came to it very late after games played differently. So I was like after a back section and I have to hold R1 to lock on either shoot with circle or L1. Nah, I don't like this. I'm out. So I can't wait to give it a try. They're selling the full thing for $70 if you want to like the next gen version with all the bells and whistles with 4K resolution, the higher frame rate, and all that. I'm glad that there's at least an option to see at least one of these games basically for free if you pay a subscription. Obviously, you're paying for one because we're playing Halo. And this also makes me interested. Is this setting up a precedent where some people use Game Pass, carving out a piece of a game, and that's what's offered there, and the full version is what you buy? Think about that. Is this not like the next step?
That borders on the idea of like our resurgence of demos, where you get to play a piece of the game, and sometimes those demos were a good piece.
Yeah, only in this case, it's a huge part. It's a game from a collection.
An entire game from a collection. I mean, I guess that goes to show the power of Game Pass in general, because so many of those people do that. And I guess this won't really affect the price of the entire thing, because you know how like sometimes things on Game Pass are also discounted. I guess because it's only a third of the actual game, maybe that doesn't affect it. But
here's what I'm thinking, because if they're doing this, maybe the way Rockstar is doing this collection is that they're also serving them piecemeal. Like, you can just buy one of these three.
Maybe at some point, but I feel like they're so focused on this trilogy aspect that I don't know if they want to split it.
Do you know that, remember Crysis? The Crysis trilogy, they announced it as a trilogy, but they are offered piecemeal in the PS Store. I saw that Crysis 2 was like
That's
by itself,
true.
Crysis 3 also, so same as Mafia. There's a Mafia trilogy, but then you can also buy it all three, so.
Okay, I guess for the trilogy, I just assumed that was a bundle, I guess, more so than this is what the way it is, and then we're going to split it.
Yeah, maybe individually they're priced in a way, if you buy all three, it's more expensive than just buying the trilogy definitive edition altogether.
Probably.
Yeah, we'll see. This thing, it's November 11th. It actually happened. We talked about this trilogy back in July of like, oh, it's actually gonna release this year. And we're like, if it does, it'll be a miracle. Then we saw the South Korea one that said like everything has to live to 2022, especially with GTA 5 moving to 2022. So it's like, yeah, that was a pipe dream. Then here we are a few weeks later. Like, it was a week ago. We saw that we saw the South Korean rating. Now we saw that it existed. Before it was just later this year. Now it's happening. So that'll be fun, because I'm not seeing in November right now, like, what's coming up from November that I would want to buy. Maybe just Vanguard, and I'm already have been with this whole thing that, yeah, I have replayed all the Call of Duties because I want to do ever a fun topic ranking that thing, but I'm not feeling like buying Vanguard like immediately, especially with how I'm feeling about Activision in certain areas, and waiting to see if my brother wants to buy it. If he buys it or he wants me to pitch in, I may pitch in just to play campaign, but not feeling Vanguard. So it's like, there's nothing in November basically, so maybe that opens the door for me to like play this, because I'm not getting Battlefield. You're getting it because you pre-ordered to play early. So
I already pre-ordered it.
You're going down the whole like the fiery buggy road of that game.
Funny enough, I'm actually going to be out of town for its release date anyway. So
maybe by the time you release it, like you come back, and when it comes
maybe I'll have like a day 1 or 2 patch that can come through real quick.
Yeah, that's a game that we can't trust reviews day one, not with Battlefield Online only games. Final story. Underlining their new commitment to offer previously released exclusives over to the PC, PlayStation and Sony Santa Monica confirmed that their critically beloved God of War from 2018, which recently was voted by fans as the greatest game of all time in IGN's Best Games of All Time bracket tournament, is migrating over to PC on January 14, 2022. Ironically, now this is the first game in the huge tsunami of releases that's happening on the first quarter of 2022. The PC port was outsourced to Canadian studio Jetpack Interactive. By the way, I didn't know there was a studio called Jetpack Interactive.
A wonderful name.
Yes, with supervision from Santa Monica itself. And it's being said to be a fully featured PC port with support for the highest fidelity possible for people equipped with the machines to support it. So if you're someone that's rocking a GTX 3090, those like super highly expensive ones, I bet you can give this game quite a workout. God of War 2018 has sold an astounding 19.5 million copies. For context, that basically has outsold the entirety of the Metroid series, just to give you an idea. And with pre-orders for the PC version topping Steam charts almost immediately, this means God of War will raise its sales milestone even further on its new platform. The sequel, God of War Ragnarok, is still tentatively scheduled to release sometime in 2022 after being delayed out of its vague 2021 release, and it's still going to be released as a console exclusive for PS4 and PS5. So there's also the possibility it could convert some few PC players that got into the series with this upcoming PC port over to the console version of the sequel if they can't wait years down the line for the potential of Ragnarok releasing on PC. Sony is all in on PC versions now. Don't forget, on your beloved Uncharted 4, it's also going to be releasing in this period with the Legacy of Thieves edition. So
I'm very happy for this, only for the fact that, one, it means that more people can get to experience this amazing game. 2, it is showing that the market is changing for this. The idea of raw exclusives is slowly pulling away, I think, and it's coming to the point of what I think somebody said on Twitter really well is like, we should just have everything be a timed exclusive and then show up on PC later. Like, make it 3 or 4 years. That doesn't matter. As long as it comes to PC, let everybody play it one day, eventually. And then one, like, they get more money out of it several years after their game's already come out. And two, like, it's just more people get to play these things. And that's really what we're here for. So
I heard it really in one of the podcasts that I listened to. It's called Sacred Symbols, the PlayStation podcast. The main host there really made a really interesting analysis to all of this. Think about how, because this is a PC version coming almost 4 years after the 2018 game, Microsoft started making Xbox and PC games out of a desperation move back in 2016. They were lagging, they were losing. And now they're committed to that, like to day and day release days. They basically like killed the value of their box by doing that. And now Sony is like finally realizing that there's money to be made with these PC versions, and also the economics about AAA development, that if you really want to make your money and make a good profit just selling in your own secluded box, if what we want is all these games to look prettier, be bigger, blah blah blah, it's like, that's the, we can keep getting those games, but it's gonna cost tradition in a way. And it's also interesting to see that because Sony has always been in a good position. They're slowly getting into this mode of releasing the PC versions at a different time, and they're not like being put in this expectation. They can roll back, like kind of like, for example, he also put the example of Microsoft committing to all our exclusives are going to be in Game Pass. You can walk that back now. You have already set that expectation. So it's like, it's so funny seeing like one in a move of desperation has set all these standards that in a way are consumer friendly, but for their bottom line is like, if they see there's potential for them to make more money in other ways or previous ways, they can't walk it back anymore because they set that standard. Now Sony is like slowly, because of how well positioned they were last time, they're slowly kind of entering this race, not as we're catching up. No, they're making it in a way that makes sense for their bottom line, because they're also in the business of selling hardware. That the fact that God of War Ragnarok is still scheduled for a tentative 2022 release, just picture all the people that are starting with the game on Steam. Obviously you're gonna have your PC elitists that, because we have our 39s, we have this, we can wait. What if they what if there are some of these people love God of War so freaking much, and I bet they will, because this is a game so championed by so many people that they just want to jump straight into the sequel. Now they can snag some. It's true. Like, it's very smart. It's in a way that like Sony's finding this really interesting middle point of not making the true exclusives, but also having some sort of value for the console that they sell. So
I think that you're absolutely right, and like they're creating so much value out of this. And what I think is, if you make something available for the PC, that means it can also be ported to just about anything else, and we'll never have to see that PlayStation 3 nightmare happen again. Which I think we're already kind of past that anyway, but
it's helping game preservation by them putting them on PC. Now they have guaranteed that there's a way to preserve those games like indefinitely in a more general system. And also, let's not forget, it's like not everyone wants PC gaming. PC gaming sucks. I'll just say it. It sucks. For the, obviously, it doesn't suck in the quality. It sucks trying to get into PC and getting good at putting a PC, because how much is a graphics card? How much is the CPU? Have I put all this? Have I got all my drivers? It's such a, like, for people that are in it, it's amazing, because they had to go through that massive barrier of entry that is trying to get it right, because there's so much. There's literally so many different ways that a PC can be built, or different models and all of that. It's not just a machine. So you will always have the people that are like, F that. We don't want to like deal with the headache. I'm seeing my brother that wants to buy a PC now. See the headaches of him trying to find the best one that's going to be good value for his money, that is not too outdated, because then he'll be forced to try to get a new graphics card, because on PC technology always develops so quickly. A graphic card can become obsolete in 2 years. And you either are like, I'm good for now, but being on PC always will force you to, I want the best of the best, because when you're on PC, you're wanting the absolute best. Then that costs a lot of money. Not on console. The console, you know what it is, and you're always gonna have that people there that want that.
think
hassle
that's
free.
another example to the raw power versus efficiency, where we were comparing the Xbox Series X to the PlayStation 5 with that whole problem. But now I would say that it is. Sorry, I got distracted because I can hear my cat like tearing up something. um, but like we were comparing these two consoles to it, but you can almost say all of consoles to the PC is the same problem, where you have raw power, but you might not know how to use it, and the developers might not know how to use it as well, versus the console, which is way less expensive, and it might be curated specifically for the game might be curated specifically for that system.
And the version that you buy is the version that I buy, and it will perform the exact same way. Exactly. Unless your console is shitting the bed. That's like the only thing that would make a console not perform the bed. That's what a console allows, a baseline that everything should work the same for everyone. In PC, the way you have set up your PC will either guarantee a high performance or a low performance. That's always the hassle that you have to deal with PC. Obviously, for people that love that hassle and have the money to it and just funnel all of that, the reward is like incredible detail that consoles could barely sometimes even dream of. But if you don't know any better, you just want to remain on console, you don't have to worry about that. You're still being served. Sony is now serving both of these in a way that helps their business. They're not at that desperation point where they're just releasing everything at once. I do wonder if we're ever gonna get to a point where they're releasing the PlayStation and PC version of a first party game at the same time. Once you do that, it's over. You can't walk that back of like, we're just releasing this. So I think they're walking a fine line, and it's different. For Microsoft, they don't make their money with their hardware. They're not a hardware manufacturer. Microsoft
They've got so much other stuff going on.
Microsoft is a software company. So in their case, it makes sense. They rather just put everything everywhere. That's not your competitor, because you make all that money anyway because it's your software. That's the thing you're focusing on. Sony, different side. They make the machine. They make money on that machine. They want to at least have value in that machine, but not let go of the fact that there's money to be made on PC. And now, because trickle up economics, we have to accept that. If we want our games to be as good as they can be, they need PC versions, because that's always a big market there. You're leaving money off on the table. Can't believe we're here now, because a few years ago, the elitists, the console elitists would be like, no, everything has to remain in this console. In fact, there's this amazing video that when Horizon was announced for PC, there was this kid literally earlier that year. He was like, I want to thank Herman Holtz for everything that he's done for my PlayStation. I know the best days are ahead for PlayStation. And then literally after Horizon was announced for PC, he recorded a video of him having destroyed his PS4. Like completely shattered. Like because he was like, because he felt so betrayed. I was like, I cannot believe there's people that stupid with capital S in their partisanship, in their like, that they define their little dick energy of defining their life to like a loyalty to this machine is just stupid. That's just what it is. And I laugh hard when people like lose their complete shit over this. So
I'm really glad that I finally matured past that nonsense. If you go on Twitter and Facebook, even now, if you go to like PlayStation's official pages on any of that, it's all Xbox fanboys like Xbox better, and then vice versa. On the Xbox page, it's PlayStation's better, Xbox has no games, and it's like, all right, guys, why are y'all wasting time on this?
Exactly.
Just go play your games.
And
we're all here.
And we can even prove it in the show. I have teared all of these three companies a new one. What just happened to Nintendo last week that I literally devoured them?
They have that whole membership.
Yeah, and I completely called their bullshit. I have called out Sony in this show for having been so quiet, especially during the abandoned crap that I had to deal with. I have called out Microsoft, praising them like for doing everything right, but also calling them out of like, what the hell is happening to their game releases? Like all of them, like no one can call us fanboys. Like we have made sure we don't. We call them out each, like, and we play games in everything. I mean, we just played Metroid Dread. That's in Switch.
Yep.
We're playing Halo. We're literally playing through a Halo series. Xbox. Playing all my stuff on PlayStation. We play on everything. Obviously, we have our preference. It's just having a preference doesn't mean you're a fanboy. Keep that in mind. I think that's what people forget. Just because your preference doesn't mean that you're here just to bat for a company. I like PlayStation. I like the games that they have the products that speak to me. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna defend every stupid decision that they're gonna make.
Same.
Neither for the other ones, and we shouldn't. In the end of the games, like, they should serve everyone in a way. No need to like have this sportsmanship that no, your team sucks. Like, I'm so tired of that, and I'm glad that because we're more adults, we get it. All these people, I bet they have that kindergarten mentality of like, mine better. So
it took a while, but I'm glad that I finally reached it myself.
Yeah, I'll accept it. When I was in the PS3 side, when I made the switch to PS3 after that story that I told in that topic a few weeks ago, and had to deal with having to suffer through all the crappy ports, I took that personally because I was like, ah, man, this sucks. And then hearing all the ones like, just want, look how great our versions are compared to the crap you guys get, or there's like, that sometimes gets you, but then it's like, eventually it's like, yeah, it's just stupid. That's just stupidity. No need for that. You'll feel better. And for Sony, I'm glad they're doing this for PC. Whether the fanboy zealots cry over, now our console is less valuable. Them. So, and with that, we have reached the end of the news section of this show. And for everyone that's listening to the full thing, we are now transitioning over to our special segment. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special segment for the X-Button, one we haven't done in ever, because it's going to be a very laser-focused topic now, /debate / discussion around Metroid Dread. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, with me, my lovely co-host,
Paul. Hey, everybody.
And with me, my guest co-host from like 10, 15 episodes ago that came in to rescue me when Paul went on vacation, Jayohkay. My friend PJ. How are you doing, PJ?
How's it going?
You're back.
doing pretty great. Just incredibly busy with my life. But
yeah,
I'm still doing good, still making content, so life's doing well.
We were supposed to get you last week when we had Zach because you've been wanting to talk about this game for a while, and it just so happens these two also played it after I also played it. And I was like, this would have been perfect then. Of course.
I'm sorry about that, Paul, by the way.
It happens.
I made you play that game. Sorry.
I will say I enjoyed the experience of stretching myself, and I can talk more in specifics in a minute, but I do appreciate overall, because there's been times I was really pissed at some people about game recommendations. I will say yours was like above that, so
well, I don't want to take too much blame on PJ because I joined in. Because he was the first one, and then I jumped in, and I was the one that kept pushing you. So it was like double recommendation.
Alejandro deciding.
We can get into it later, but I can agree it's not a flawless game. Mm-hmm. I just love it. Like it's my personal favorite Metroid game. I played a lot of the others. Like it's just it hits my cup of tea, and for like what it brings to the table and into recommendation of a game. That's why I look at it as high regard as I do. I feel like all my things against it are very nitpicky, so that's why I can't really fault it much more. Like if it was unplayable, then I feel like I would start faulting it, or if the dialogue was just so terrible, I would start faulting it. But for what the game is, and for a Metroid game, I think it's done phenomenal. And I think Metroid games in general are phenomenal, so I can't give it a low rating.
Yeah, and I would kind of join with that because I actually made Paul also play one of the older ones. He got an emulator, so he can also play some of the, so he can get an idea what Metroid was.
I did. You played Zero Mission, right?
Yeah,
I did. I haven't finished it, but I don't know how long I am in.
Zero Mission's good. It's actually the longest 2D Metroid game, by the way.
Is it? I beat it in 3 hours, and I've never played it before.
Did you do all the extra content at the end, like all the news story stuff?
Yes. After you beat Metroid, and then you do the thing that. Do you want me to spoil it, Paul?
Oh wait. Never mind.
Yeah.
I got it mixed up with a clear time for Samus Returns. Yes. Samus Returns, the remake of Samus Returns, is 11 hours.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, Zero Mission's the one that I beat it like almost 4 hours. I put the timer there. So yeah, just to kind of start this conversation, you basically said like what I was gonna ask, which was what do you think of Metroid Dread? You basically said.
Spoiler alert, I think it's a 10 out of 10 game. I think at the least I'd give it a 9.5, 9 on a bad day.
Yeah, in my case it's like a 9 out of 10 of like probably some of the best example of what a modern 2D version of Metroid can be that just misses being a 10 out of 10 for me in just specific areas like UI in the map, maybe some quality of life stuff that other Metroids had that this one doesn't, and Paul can get into that. And Paul, what do you think of Metroid Dread?
So I want to give it first its props and respect, because despite the fact that my final score was a little harsh at giving it a 7, I really did like a lot of certain things, especially the things that they do right. Comparatively to the previous games, Alejandro and I touched on it before we started recording. The 360 ability to aim is fantastic.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Just clear.
Metroid feels broken after like when you go back and don't have that. It's like it breaks your mind.
Dude,
like,
it's so annoying. Yeah, dude. Replaying through Super Metroid recently has been
a pain.
A pain. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Because of that.
So
encountering too. It's
so that's one thing that I just absolutely loved. The second thing, I love the colors of it. It looks crisp, it looks clean, the mechanics are fantastic, the movement of Samus herself and everything else going on, the motion of it all just feels great. There's no like weird motion blur, there's no like screen tearing obviously, but and then like a weird little personal thing that I like myself, like that I mentioned to Alejandro, it almost feels like you're looking at a little diorama with your character kind of running across it, and I don't know why, I just really like that vibe for it. I love those indie games that have that feel of it, not even like Metroidvanias, but like, man, I'm just all of a sudden not going to be able to think of anything off the top of my head, but they're like those 2D action games or whatever they just feel great when you're looking at them because it looks small, it looks adorable. My friend Pedro has that same kind of feel.
I can agree with that.
Even like to an extent, Hotline Miami to an extent, similar feel to that. But anyway, so yeah, I have a lot of stuff that I really love about it. Honestly, once I listened to Zach's advice actually to I was approaching this through the Castlevania lens, and I realized that there's a lot more of a disconnect between Castlevania and Metroid than I previously believed, because Castlevania, there's never a limiter on where you can go. You can literally go anywhere until you reach a block, and then you can go everywhere else. Metroid really wants you to focus on that pathway. And then like if you get to a teleportation thing, you need to take that teleportation thing because that's where you need to go next. I was like, oh, okay, cool, I got that, let me come back later. And then I realized I couldn't go anywhere else. And
that's something that, if I can interject there, that's something that initially, when compared to previous Metroids like Zero Mission and Fusion, which were the 2D ones before Metroid Samus Returns, that we're giving you like pointers in the map to where you go, I was worried. I was like, oh no, we're back to Super Metroid, a complete bakedness of what you're supposed to do, where you're going, and it feels like it's more designed to hit that spirit of Super Metroid without ever like letting go of a linear progression on your first time. Because also keep in mind that, especially after we read the Washington Post article from Gene Park that I posted in our group, Metroid really is a game designed for the speedrunning. Beating it once is just getting familiar, and it's just about, and you've been like speedrunning it how many times? Like 5 times, right, PJ?
Yeah, I'm going on my 6th one right now. I've still yet to beat it under 2 hours, which is sad, because that's the real, like, that's whenever you're getting into like real speedrunning territory, is because I think the fastest right now is like 1 hour and 29 minutes, right? So if I can hit under 2 hours, I think I'm just gonna call it quits. Like, but I'm at like 2 hours and 20 or 2 hours and 50 minutes. I just need to practice pathways. That's the most complicated part about speedrunning, is not screwing up pathing at all, like maximizing speed and all that stuff. But about that real quick, if you don't mind, I wanted to comment on what Paul said actually. So Paul, you mentioned that the game is incredibly linear, which I have 2 things to say about. One, yes, I think, how do I put it? I think the design of the game and why I give it so much, like so many props, right, is that at first glance, like someone like you you're not used to Metroid, and same thing with Zach, you wouldn't realize that it's linear until it's doing that to you. And to some credit, like, I got through the majority of the game my first run, like, and I felt like I was just a boss, because I was like, I never had to be told where to go, and all of a sudden I'm where I need to be, you know? But then you find out later, whenever I'm practicing speedrunning stuff, that the game wants you to do these things but it doesn't tell you it. And so it gives you that sense of accomplishment that you found that out for yourself, rather than the game giving you a signpost to go here. But yet it still is subconsciously signposting you to do things. So that's something that I love about the design of the game comparative to the other ones, is that you get a bigger sense of accomplishment when you find where you need to go, and yet it's still not too difficult to find where you need to go, because they still direct you to where you need to be.
And I want to add that Zach put it best. Like, that game has momentum. You feel a certain momentum that... Because obviously it doesn't point you. You feel like you have to keep exploration, but the game really is designed in a way that if you really carry that momentum, you're rarely going to get too stuck at a certain...
And that's what I told you when you got lost, Alejandro.
But I still didn't ask you. I was like, where I'm supposed to go? And then I was like, no, I figured it out. You're always at that border that I don't know where to go, and you suddenly find it. It's like you feel that low point.
Like, I do remember telling you specifically, I was like, hey, whenever the map is sending you in a general direction, it's usually sending you towards where you need to go. And if you feel like you've hit a wall, keep shooting.
Yeah, literally keep shooting everything.
Like, literally keep
bomb
shooting.
everything.
Because sometimes camera's having an issue. There we go. Sometimes you actually just have to break through the wall. And you wouldn't know it, which is I can understand being a draw.
And then I want to add a little bit with the wall breaking there. That's the one thing in quality of life things that I feel Dread just took a slightly step back from what they try to do in a subsequent Metroids following Super Metroid, because I posted the picture of Zero Mission. Zero Mission really delineates some things that could be broken, and you could see it kind of like as a little easier way to signpost. Super Metroid, even the one before it, is like they gave you nothing. It was about really guessing where you're supposed to shoot, and that's like, and that's like a quality of life that for some people they can really appreciate, and for some that if you never had that, I can see someone like Paul being the first time through being like, wait, I didn't know that was the wall I had to shoot, right, Paul?
Yeah,
well,
like, I can see that. There's some times where I got stuck and I got confused, so I didn't know what to shoot, but in the same regards, if I was talking about the game being a linear progression without necessarily telling you that it's linear, I feel like personally, if all of the walls were cracked, then it would be too easy of a linear progression, because you literally don't have anything in your way ever. Like, you're literally just going in the momentum and just keep going.
I would like to add one thing that I think they did try to do. I wish they'd done it sooner, is the pulse mechanic of holding the right, and then you see everything that you need.
I think from Samus Returns.
I think that would have actually helped me a lot to have that more, because after that point I never got lost.
I never used it ever. When I got it, I used it one time.
Constantly.
I'm not gonna lie.
Literally almost every room I went in.
And you made the choice.
If I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't even know what the button is to use it.
D-pad left, I think it was, or
D-pad to the right. You hold it down, you kind of pulse for a second, and then it tells you kind of a X-ray of, hey, this thing can be broken, but it doesn't tell you what. So whenever you go to it, then you use like a bomb on it or whatever to tell you what you actually need. But then of course at a certain point, if you have what you need, you'll kind of just bust through it anyway. I just wish kind of that had been a little sooner for me, because my thought process, like, to kind of talk on what you were saying, I will say that it's not as much a linear as it is focused. And I can respect it, but then that kind of leads into what I would like to have a point on, unwritten rules, where some games have universal rules that you just kind of understand to play through. I mean, FPS's, your open worlds, literally everything. We just kind of understand certain things.
Just game language.
Yeah, game language. Metroid has such a specific one that I feel like if you've played it before, like now I could probably play through any of the Metroids because I understand what the game loop is supposed to be. I think there can be a disconnect if you are playing a first time Metroid game and you don't know that process. So for me, and Zach as well, I mean, maybe to a lesser extent him because he actually beat it before me, but for me, that first shuttle area, you come in, I went right, apparently you're supposed to go left, and there's like the wall that I never noticed. If you don't see it, for me, I'm like, okay, well, obviously there's nothing even there. Like, there's not any indication for me visually to even draw my eyes towards it. Why should I bother? It wasn't only until y'all said, hey, go shoot that specific wall, and sure enough, that's where I found it. But
and that's the thing, like, when the game does train you in a way, like very early, that just shoot anything to open, but it's done in a way of like, Oh, if you played it, do you remember that? Yeah, that's how you do it. Keep going. So
That actually, I'm glad you pointed that out because I learned the wrong lesson from that tutorial. Where they said on the map it'll flash
Yeah.
if you have to blow something up in the area. I
Yeah,
didn't
no.
realize that only applied to
for the
hidden,
collectible.
Like
secret items.
Yeah, secret
not
items. Yeah.
progression if it's a hidden area. So that was like, well, how was I supposed to know if it wasn't flashing? So I think maybe just one slight improvement before we talk about the idea of improving the genre. If they wanted to make that a little bit easier for newcomers, I think maybe just make a small flashing thing on the map in the area and then move from there.
Let me give you a better one. Go back to the map from Fusion and I would even say even Super Metroid, correct me if I'm wrong, or Zero Mission. There's specific points in the map. There's a dot in the middle of like an area. That dot tells you there's a collectible here. It's like at least it was all over Fusion and Zero Mission.
Collectibles, I actually had no problems because it was small enough of an area that I could kind of go around even through rooms to find kind of what they needed me to do. Even if I kind of forgot to go back there once I had the item needed. Because the map is just freaking massive.
Yeah. Yeah, and just looking at that UI, especially like they try to give it a little bit more detailed, make it a little bit more formed when you look at it, but the way they design it, I said it in our discussion that PJ wasn't here last week, it felt like an intern was brought in to do a map the last week of the last week of development of that game, because it's the only one thing of that game that doesn't have the elegance of everything else in its design.
I can agree to that. I think the map was passable.
Yeah.
That's
I like the one in the corner though. The one in the corner ironically looked readable. It just sucks that it's just that tiny one that looked readable.
I didn't like, if I'm gonna be honest with you, like the map wasn't like, how do I put it? Like it wasn't pleasant to look at, but it wasn't difficult to understand. It was just incredibly minimalistic. Like I always, when I got confused where to go, I could always just look at the map and look at all the doors that I haven't opened up yet. I'm like, okay, boom, that's where I need to go.
And in that way, like it's functional. It's
that
like
little
functional.
space between two rooms. I'm like, okay, I shoot a wall there. Like, there you go. Like it wasn't anything to write home about, but I mean, it served its purpose. It could be a lot better.
It looked to me like for a game that's like very AAA in quality, it looked like something straight out of like an indie when everything else was like more high quality. Now, Paul, I want to really
talking about quality. Like Nintendo really isn't holding up to quality recently, have they?
Oh no, they sure have not. Stupid Switch Online. That's been a meme today. But so I really want to touch about this one point because this is a place where me and PJ really divide with Paul. The final boss fight. So
do we want to jump right into that?
Yeah, because that was the thing that
before we do, I did have a second point on Paul's linear take that I
go for it. Go for it before we go to that boss.
So when it comes to the linear sense of the game, I absolutely agree. Like it does a really good way of suggesting where you need to go, get into that point, and giving you a sense of accomplishment. And you described it as like, you wouldn't follow the momentum, you would go back and you would get lost and you wouldn't know where to go because you felt like you couldn't go anywhere else except where you need to go. That's untrue, actually. Like it's something really cool that I've learned about in the speedrunning community and like running through that game multiple times, is that there are legitimate like hidden things in the story. Like Alejandro knows about the Kraid boss.
I actually did hear about that. Go ahead and finish your
so like if you decided break. Yeah, I mean, if you and it's never like a glitch or breaking the game. It's more of a like, oh, I have this thing, and there was something that clicked with me that's way back there. So if I traverse way back here, I can do this thing, which allows me to cut ahead in the story to get something that I'm going to get 2 hours later now, and then I can defeat this a lot easier. Also getting like, there's people who never get the moon jump ever, and if you want, if you want to learn,
what is the moon jump, real quick?
Or space jump, whatever it is, the one that lets you just keep jumping.
Yeah, like the one that just keeps keep.
So if you want to do a real speed run under 3 hours, you have to not get that item. Period. And how you get around is you have to like almost. It's not frame perfect, right? You can. There's some moments where you bomb, but mainly it's that spark thing or that running thing where you charge it and shoot up. So instead of having to like jump, you can run. And it's crazy because replaying through the game, it's wild how particular and like amazingly that map, not the map design, the UI, but the map is built because there are parts that you need to have that jump for. But if you go like 2 rooms back, there is a platform that is just specifically long enough for you to run and get that charge on, and is just and it's just placed just far enough away that you can get there and use that to move before it disappears. It's kind of crazy how often they do that. And if you do that, the game rewards you with something different than in a normal playthrough, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and not only that,
it encourages you to like break the game and try new things.
And that's been an inherent design in all the Metroid games, as that Washington Post article put. The one thing where Dread takes it a step further is even changing its cutscenes in specific things, because because before it was like, oh yeah, here's the boss and you beat it, but they really thought about that. It's like, maybe if this guy gets bombed before fighting Kraid, then the animation is going to be different. So that's the one thing that they
favorite example that you don't see a lot of people talk about is, you know, those like whenever killing an Emmy, there's always those like orb things you have to shoot a lot, and then you fight that. You can instant kill those things.
What?
If once you have the running ability, if you just run into the room, charge it, and then do it like jump under it, it just dies. Like it's
okay, that's straight
it's
bullshit.
So easy.
It's really
so easy. Yeah.
Well, I have to go back and try it.
And I found it out, and like when I was doing a run, I was like, no freaking way, that's real. And I looked it up. It's like, yeah, that's what people do for runs. And like a lot of bosses, you can just like overwrite by doing that. And I thought like maybe I could kill the last boss because he just kind of floats for a while and you're just running underneath. And I was like, maybe I could run, charge, and hit him with it.
It's very hard because it's very tiny for you before you could get a momentum there. So
not really. It's really long. You can get 2 momentums in it. Yeah. It's just you hurt yourself when you do that, because I think they saw that coming. They were like, you can't cheese this. But the 3 bosses before him, you can like. Oh, you know that one that had like the parasite? We'll just get there because we're going to be talking about the last boss.
Yes, full spoiler.
We're going to assume that this is full spoilers
guys.
now. So the X parasite that you fight, Matt, my freaking camera does this.
Yes.
I'm getting another camera because this is so annoying. Anyways,
we can still see you.
Okay, I'm just gonna be fuzzy for a while. All right, so the X parasite that turns into 3 different forms of that like giant rock beast thing. The first little one, and then the middle one, and then the one that shoots out the lasers. That's really
that one.
You can cheese that boss and beat it in like under 30 seconds by using that running ability. So you can kill the first one by just spamming shoot. The second one, while it's going around and before it transforms in the next form, you run to the other side of the map, charge it, and then it appears, and then it goes to attack you, and it reveals its like weak point. Just do the quick zoom across, it instant kills it. Then run across, charge up again. The other one gets ready to attack you. You hit it, and then it only has like 6 missiles left, and it's dead. Like it's like so.
I don't know about you, Paul, but it makes me want to try this. Like,
it's actually like easy. Like once you know like the bosses, and you go back and you incorporate these other moves that you don't genuinely use in a normal playthrough, those bosses are cakewalks, including those ones that you call the Marauders a lot. I have yet to die to them since my first playthrough. Like they get really easy.
Yeah, since multi-missile, those things became cakewalk when I figured out. So
I do have a good response. And before my thoughts get more disorganized, I would like to pose the suggestion of where the line is between. Ignore my cats if you hear them in the background, by the way.
I don't hear anything.
Good. So. You were talking about the idea of sequence breaking. So I know that Metroid is a very specific example. So I'll first put up the idea that how much should we expect people to understand to try sequence breaking in a game?
You should.
And then the second, you
shouldn't. No, it's a reward for people who go looking for it.
Right.
It's not a necessity.
Which is something that is not going to be exploited. I wouldn't quite say it, but people aren't going to use the thing that you're expecting because it's not naturally known in the gaming language. Which agreed. That's not like necessarily a bad thing. It's just not common. Well, I'm wondering where does that line go on? Do you just need to have friends that explain the concept of Metroids to you first before you get into it? Because say like if before I played the game, you or Alejandro or both sat me down and said, all right, listen, these are the things that you need to look out for, X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. And then I probably would have had a very different experience having understood those things rather than going into it fully blind. My second thought before I can let y'all finish on suggestions is, where do you let the community by word of mouth kind of do something like that and it be part of like the experience, versus where does that become bad game design because you're not telling your own unique rules that don't exist in literally any other game for the common consumer?
I have a retort to that and an example.
Go for it.
So my common retort to that would be something that I'm gonna be honest with you. So the only other Metroid game I played is Prime, and Prime is not like these games, and Fusion. I played Fusion like a decade ago, and if I'm gonna be honest with you, getting up and ready to like play this game, like I had no, like in my mind, I had no lingering example of what Metroid was. I just kind of remember the story, and I remembered like shoot things, like that's all I remember. And yet I still didn't find myself absolutely like really struggling with the game a whole lot. Like I definitely want to throw my controller sometimes, and the last boss took me over an hour to beat. I'm not gonna front. But when I replayed the game, I actually found out the Kraid thing by doing it. I had no one tell me that was a thing.
Really?
I found the bomb because I decided I'm going to play this game differently and see if I can do other things. And I got the bombs early, fought Kraid, and then did that. And then at that point made me look up like what other sequence breaks are there? Are there things like, are there other cutscenes that are in the game or whatever? And that's when I started looking up things. So I feel like maybe it's just the fact that like I'm just better at platforming. I don't know.
You're built different.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have a retort for that one. I have a retort for that.
I'm not like super crazy on like a lot of platforming games. Like I'm not crazy on Hollow Knight. I'm not crazy on
Ori.
You're not crazy I didn't really like Ori. Yeah. So like I don't really know why this game clicked with me, but it did. But your example of like the game needs to tell you that there's other things that you can do. Do you need to just have it word of mouth, or is that bad game design? That's literally 100% of Minecraft, dog. Like Minecraft, the number one biggest selling game of all time, does not have a manual in the game until decades later.
That's why I hate it.
Really?
That's what I hate it. That's why I hate Minecraft, because it doesn't have the
there was never a manual in Minecraft until Microsoft bought it, and then 3 years after they bought them, they made a manual. Yeah. Like the crafting system isn't even an automatic crafting system. You just had to take things and put it in like a shape, 3x3 shape, and hope that you built the thing you want to build. And that entire game was just word of mouth, and it's the best selling game of all time. So I don't think that's bad game design. Yeah, when you're taking into account something like that.
I think it depends on the type of game, but I want to let Alejandro finish.
Yeah, I would say it's not a bad game design, but it's just old school game design, because the NES era of game design was the playground. Hey, how do you do this? What do you find this? It Dark Souls, I know a game that PJ doesn't really like. It also takes that kind of old school playground mentality of like really crowdsourcing the solution of things. And the thing is, I would say Metroid has gotten a little better at even not being so obtuse. Like I had the legendary example of, I mentioned Super Metroid has one specific area that the game never trains you over the idea that you have to put the fucking power bomb in the glassway. Like that wasn't previously, they didn't give you an example that it could happen. That is something that you run at and it happens.
I'm not even gonna lie, running through it in Metroid Dread, when I saw that, I
immediately clicked and I texted you.
But I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
That was my first example seeing it, and I ran past it. I was like, I'm gonna have to break that at some point. And when I came back, I was like, this is it, isn't it? And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, I mean, when you see sparks and stuff,
trains you, and even Dread trains you before the final Emmy. You like run through that hallway, and then it explodes before he does the chingy thing. So even Dread teaches you that. So even Metroid has gotten a little better at doing some signposting that in the 1980s, 1990s were complete nonsense. So
like last comment I'm gonna make, and then let Paul say what he wants to say, and we can talk about the final boss. The only reason why I'm not pulling this game from a 10 to a 9 in my mind is that there's a lot of things that I absolutely agree this game could do better. But until they do better, this is my 10 out of 10 Metroid game. once they do better, I have no problem pulling Dread back to a 9 or 8 because
it's fair.
But I'm waiting for that.
Yeah,
and,
it's fair.
And I think if you're gonna experience Metroid, this is probably the best way a new player can experience Metroid. That isn't having to deal with old game design where you can't like counter and do 360 movement and all this stuff. It's
the only ones you can really experience officially are Metroid and Super Metroid in the NES and SNES collection
and Super Metroid is a bitch.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's really hard. It really
is
is
easily the most difficult one. Is very hard.
Yeah,
so I very much appreciate the admittance of that, because I'm over here thinking like, did I suddenly become smooth brain, monkey brain gamer over here all of a sudden because I was really struggling with all this stuff? Alejandro, did you have something else to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say like, let's talk about the boss before we take our first break. Thanks, Zoom.
Oh yeah.
So,
true. Yeah,
so,
really.
so just to give the example. So PJ had warned me about this boss. I had heard Twitter following this boss, like the 50-50. This boss is the worst thing ever. This boss is the best thing ever. I land in the side of this is one of the best things ever because I just kept improving. However, Paul landed in the other 50 side of this is complete BS, and that's the thing that unraveled this thing you were loving. What was your quick experience with that boss, Paul?
So I started up. I must have missed a couple of the little details that y'all had dropped in y'all's statements, where like saying it was BS, because I only remembered y'all saying it was really rewarding. It was super awesome. The ending is like the greatest thing ever. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna blast the sucker.
You forgot when I said this is the most bullshit yet rewarding.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
you focus on rewarding
that part. I only remember y'all like continuing to say after you said that initial statement. So I go into it thinking that it's not even going to be that bad. Because I was like, okay, well, there's focusing so much on the ending and how great and rewarding it is. Let me see what the deal is. It's probably going to be
rewarding.
Some, like, dope
means you have to
stuff.
put in effort for a reward.
See, that's the problem that I hit, because I didn't think about that at the time, and I didn't clarify. I should have, because I walk in and I'm like, okay, well, the plot kicks in. Finding out Samus is like part Metroid and like he's her dad, and I'm like, whoa, this is freaking crazy. Now it all makes sense with his design, where he almost looks like a male like Samus armor with his arm piece and everything. And then I realized that I basically need every single finger on like point at all times on this, or I'm going to get juggled into oblivion.
They like really condition you throughout the entire game to learn like
every
movement, and then that last boss is like, okay, show me what you got. We're taking off your training wheels. Like, and if you're not ready, it will whoop your ass.
And that's why I said it was rewarding, because the only enemy to me that I mentioned that only broke a little bit with that read the movement was the Choso robot. And that's the only one that you beat just spamming heavy robots and screw attacks, because it didn't have like a rhyme and reason when they were gonna do the blockable attack.
They die so quick to screw attacks. I'm so upset I didn't know that until my second playthrough.
I know, when I heard that, I found out like I screw attacked by accident one of them. I was like, are you kidding me? You could do that?
They like 3 or 4 hits.
Yes, with a screw attack. So because
I wouldn't have realized
but
that.
There is a pattern to them. It's very annoying. And
it's annoying,
because to every boss before that, they have a 2 or 3 part pattern. The Chozo have a 5-part pattern.
That's why
it breaks. One rotates between 2. And so if you're not used to that pattern, like you're just gonna throw controllers. And that's how I was my first couple times fighting him. But once I learned that pattern, I can beat him without getting hit, like majority of the time.
Especially with like the multi missiles. But just to do some verbal vomit here before I run out of time on my final boss thing, I'll just kind of tell you all the things that I really struggled with, and then you can tell me how I'm a bad gamer. So like the first thing was obviously most of this I've already mentioned to y'all in the group chat, was the his little like melee hits. For whatever reason, like when I jump, I didn't realize until the final boss that unless I hit a direction, you can just kind of jump up in the air and do nothing, but then you can't actually double jump out of it.
I'm actually surprised it took you that long, because during the parts where you're double jumping on plants or whatever, like I kept falling off. I was so mad at that part, and I was like, why in the hell can I just normal jump? I was so mad about that. And I will throw you that bone. I was going to mention this at the end of the podcast, but I'll mention it now. My legitimate only dog on the game that I have is the fact that like there's a normal jump. Why?
I appreciate
there a
that
normal
because that really gives me some validity because I was sitting here
Pissed
like
me off.
I
was
remember
why?
in all of the even in playing Zero Mission, I think it's automatically like the spinny move
Yes.
when you jump.
I was
So
why do I have to be
that's-
moving?
That feels really weird. So yeah, that thing, and then when you do turn to jump, if you jump towards him, you're not actually carrying yourself far enough over his hitbox.
You have to jump away from him and then back.
Yeah. So I realized that after the fact, but
or jump and then use A to like
which that was how I was avoiding everything at that point, even to the point that I couldn't keep up with his dash move, which I had to counter because at some point I eventually was able to kind of like predict, because that's my problem with even like FPS. The only way I'm able to actually keep up with anybody in multiplayer is by predicting movements. I can't actually react to anything.
Your reaction
to save my
time's
life.
low.
Oh, it's terrible. And I've tried to train myself. Even in the NBA 2K games has a reactionary thing. But
really?
I think like
I'm so bad at them. I'm so bad at them also.
Yeah. I don't even bother with it because it's like a green light will show up and you have to like hit the button that corresponds with it, which is like corresponding to a real thing. But I'm not good at it. I've been terrible at Simon Says, the bop it, twist it, whatever gives me anxiety out the wazoo. So I couldn't. So I've learned to like overcome that. So I realized that when you almost can't do anything outside of React, that's when I really struggle. Because in certain games, like that's the only way that I've been able to move past them. Bloodborne, Dark Souls, like all those kinds, but then also other things like Hollow Knight and other things like that. So when you have multiple enemies like the Hollow Knight boss that has like 6 of them, I can't keep up because you can't predict. You just have to react. And that's where I'm probably really struggling.
Because
so
I play competitive Smash, and that's all reactionary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
So on that note, we're gonna take a little break, and we'll be right back. So Paul, anything else you want to say about the boss?
Yes, a couple things. So I've talked about the juggling aspect, the few other things, and I will say that I've cooled off a little bit since the fresh beating of it because of the frustration obviously in the middle of it all. And even though the ending is fantastic, I love the armor design, the way that kind of plays out.
That needs to be in Smash, dude. There's no if there's ever a new Smash Brothers, if there ever is, like it has to have that. There's no way.
And also include Raven's Peak. You gotta include Raven's Peak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, a few of those things. I felt like it was weird that the sprint move felt so difficult for me to pull off. Plus, like
it's very hard.
Sprint and then dash up in there, and then it was like never used again for me. That was really weird. The concept of I was still struggling to hit the double jump, the infinite jump timing. And that would kill me so many times because I just felt like I couldn't keep up with what he was trying to do. And hang on, I'm trying to remember like the last couple of things that I was always struggling with. Oh, the multi-missile thing, where I thought that was like the only way you could really do significant damage to him. And I realized you just have to keep mashing it because you can't wait for him to do anything. And then the last thing was misunderstanding his golden aura, where I just wasted missiles for a long time before somebody told me that he's actually invincible during that time.
That was the part for me where I did the counter for the first time. I was like, oh,
that does damage.
That does a lot.
Counters do damage, man. Yeah, imagine. So all of your frustrations you had with that boss, and Alejandro you had with your boss, imagine how I felt not having anyone to talk to about the boss without any research or anything, playing that for an hour and a half. Like I felt like I hit, like I agree with Paul to an extent. Like when I was playing it, I felt like I hit a wall. Like I had to, like I didn't even beat him in a night because it was really late at night. And I played him for like an hour, and then I tried it again another 30 minutes the next day and beat it. And I had to take every single form, and it's like its own boss fight. So Form 1, it took me a long time, and then I mastered Form 1, no problem. Now I'm mastering Form 2. And then once I got to the point where I could beat Form 2, I got my ass handed to me in Form 3 every time. And I was like,
really?
And I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? Because of the sun thing, I was like, how do I dodge it? How do I dodge it?
I didn't even know about the power bomb thing. I didn't even know about it.
I was the first person in this line of like, because I told you guys about the power bomb thing. It wasn't until I was so mad because I was about to die, and I know that you could explode the purple things. I was like, I wonder if the power bomb does any damage to him. and I popped the power bomb right as he spawned the sun, and it blew up the sun, and I was like, "That's a game changer! That's a game changer! Oh my god, I can do it!"
Yeah.
And then I beat him. And then I beat him.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I just like you, I mastered Form 1. 2 actually gave me the most trouble. In 3, I went into it understanding the power bomb mechanic, but even then, since I only had 2, that doesn't like wipe him out. So I had to figure out how to deal with the sun without the power bomb. And I found out like the way you can kind of bait him, because obviously he's following you with his little laser.
Yeah.
But at a certain point he stops.
God.
So what I do is I wait in the corner and I kind of jump a couple times, let him kind of do his thing, and as soon as I see him like me jump and he stays, that's when I get over it. I follow like up into the corner, because once the little beams hit the ceiling, they disappear completely. So there's like this corner that you can get in and that it can't really touch you. That's how I got over that. So
when you did the circular one, I stayed close to him. I kept doing dash and dash.
You can actually when he does this in Form 2, like whenever he follows you around, you have to jump around him. I found out during my first playthrough that while going around him, you can shoot him with a missile and continue your momentum. So I would like jump, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him like that.
I didn't have the dexterity because let's not forget, this game almost broke my finger.
I remember that.
I wish we could like put some footage of your thumb like twitching.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I understood that later on, because at least through most of the game, I could get away with the multi-missiles and the charge beam, so I wasn't like ever really mashing it until specific things like the boss little counter moments, like the giant it wasn't a worm, it was like the weird thing with the million eyes and like the weird two arms that was climbing.
Yeah, it's the if you remember, whenever you're going through the game, there's this weird like boss room that a boss doesn't happen in, that there's like a giant creature in the background getting tested on.
Yeah.
That's that.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch
the
that.
X Parasite. They don't tell you.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a hint.
Yeah.
X Parasite takes that over, and that's
by that point I had forgotten about it. But
I can't wait, Paul.
Like when I replayed the game, I was like, wait, that's it. I was like, that's cool.
No,
I think
you're about to see that in Fusion. That's the game that taught us like all the mechanical. Oh yeah, here's the one that you have to hit the eye. Here's the one that you can just destroy. Like the game, like this Dread becomes Metroid Fusion. I can't wait for you to really see the birth of that, because some of those things in Fusion were BS. Like
I think I'm gonna play through Zero Mission, which I appreciated. I'm gonna play through Fusion, and then I think I'm gonna replay Dread, understanding all of that, and I feel like I'm going to have a way better experience.
You're gonna have the time of your life, I tell you. Like once you like go back to it, knowing the language.
Once you know how to beat these bosses, it's a lot more fun, because you get to challenge yourself to go out of norm, try new things to beat them, or go do a sequence break, or learn skips the game, or just try to beat it as fast as you can and just feel like a badass.
And also you're no longer have to go through this thing that I also said, that this is a prop to the game, that the game had a couple low points where you could reach that frustration, but it always knew how to hit you with that reward, to hit you with that endorphin of I'm gonna keep going. I was always like, man, I don't know about this. Oh, I got the gravity suit now. I'll keep going. I finally got all this. So just now to kind of try to bring this home, obviously this game is great. Like this game has reviewed well. Like PJ gave it a 10. I'm in the 9-10 range. Paul is in the 7s. I don't know where's Zach.
I think Zach was around the same.
Yeah, I said 7 as well.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously in the week since this game has released, especially if you kind of take a gander to the Reddit of Metroid, now there's been like this discourse about like the existence of accessibility options towards this game, or maybe the adding an easy mode. So now that we have had our very fiery conversations in our text, but you can kind of have like a PJ, you can go.
I can agree to easy mode. Like there's something that we've talked about in the background, because I like to defend Dread, because of all the Switch games I played, I think Dread is in my top 3 like favorite Switch games. I would say
it's my number 1, even better than Breath of the Wild for me at this point. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. I don't know if I'd give it number 1 over Breath of the Wild, just because the amount of hours. Like if I had to be stranded on an island, I think Breath of the Wild would please me more than
I can see that
in the long run. You know. Yeah. But like Metroid Dread as an experience, like it's definitely up there for me. But accessibility isn't an issue. Like for me, it's whenever Nintendo adds things like Funky Kong in Donkey Kong, where you're just invincible and you just can't die. That that level of accessibility where a baby can play it isn't cool to me. I think if you're going to make it accessible to people, I think that you should just make the game easier, not impossible to lose. In my opinion, and like give Samus a lot more health. Like enemies do a lot less damage. They have a lot less health. It's just easier to feel like a badass and easier to go through it. And if you don't pay close attention to you playing on easy mode, you could still get the same satisfaction out of it where you're like, man, I really bested this boss. I really bested that Emmy, you know, like I did all this other stuff. I would have no problem with Metroid Dread having an easy mode, as long as the normal mode and hard mode still existed and it still felt the same way it did, but had an easier version. I would have no problem with that. Yeah, I just don't want Funky Kong mode, dude.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Something that basically plays it as itself. You're basically just breaking Metroid in a way. Like, so in my perspective, I was always the one. I was like, why couldn't there be an easy mode? I remember we had that conversation about trying to keep the sanctity of Metroid as like one of more Nintendo's more hardcore series, because it technically is compared to. That's why it has always sold very niche.
You need that level of like satisfaction, you know, and that's something that you get with Metroid Dread, is like besting this opponent, whatever. Whereas like in Mario with like the white Tanuki suit, like you don't get any satisfaction hitting the top of the flagpole at the end of the
because you're just flying there.
White Tanuki, because you literally can't lose, and it feels like it was handed to you on a silver platter.
Yeah, and I will say that because then after we played Red, like I shoot up my emulator and I tried to go through Fusion again, because I've always said that Fusion was my all-time favorite Metroid game.
It's hard, dude.
I didn't have as much of a hard time as I was expecting to, other than just the diagonal. Like the stupid robot that you have to shoot diagonally is the worst. Yeah, they have to like fight twice in that game.
I am currently replaying that game on my 3DS, and I feel like it's a lot more difficult to play in a handheld for me.
Yeah, I played it on a PC with an Xbox controller. By the way, if you want to play on an emulator, do the Xbox One controller. It feels nice on it.
I agree to that. That's why I play Mother 3.
Yeah. Oh man, I wish I could play Mother. I need to find a way to play Mother 3, because everyone keeps asking Nintendo to release it.
I can send you.
Awesome.
So I guess my thoughts on the idea, because I agree the idea of easy mode. I mean, especially the fact that finding out that Zero Mission had an easy mode from the beginning baked in was very helpful to understand. Okay, so this isn't something that just wasn't added. It was something that was eventually taken away, which for the motivation of it, I can understand, because Nintendo clearly wanted it to be appealing more to the hardcore groups. I think what Nintendo is hoping that if they just keep it to that hardcore team, it's just going to sell better if they put enough marketing behind it. What I fear is people see the marketing of creepy 2D shooter platformer game, but they're going to see modern Switch, colorful, this is Samus, I remember her.
This is the big game of this holiday. You have to get this game.
And I
know her from Smash Brothers, kind of thing.
Right.
You know?
I think what they could have done is even put out like a small video that shows a little gameplay to show that this game's going to kick the crap out of you. Really?
They did.
Yes, but it felt more like an overview instead of this is how you play this game. It was more like this is all the things that you can do in this game.
Yeah. Let me amend my statement then. Then maybe that
they
wouldn't
almost
have worked anyway.
Said too much, like in my opinion. Like I purposely didn't watch any of Nintendo's videos of it because it was very prevalent on Twitter. They're like, don't watch the videos if you want to go into this game blind, because they will spoil everything, how to play it, what you can do in the game, and what even the last bosses they spoiled in like trailers.
I'm so thankful. The only thing that I saw before I played this game was the discourse around, because I don't know if you know this guy David Jaffe. He's the he's the creator of the original God of War. He has gone to the warpath against this game's design and all that, and everyone has been like blasting him. So like, because
I saw that video.
Yeah, the one of the shooting the top, and he was
ceiling,
like,
and he was like, who would ever see that? Did you see the video that someone did a compilation of that?
Of everyone shooting up there?
About like 70 different streamers who just like saw an enemy and they shot at it and they ended up
missed
the ceiling and they were like, oh, that's where you go.
So that's the only that was the only thing that I got spoiled on. And the thing is that
that was so funny.
He had a he did a video recently with Gene Park, the guy that did the Washington Post, and Gene Park got to finally explain to him kind of like the Metroid design sensibility of things. And the thing that I learned there is that the way Metroid Dread was marketed was more towards like longtime fans of the series. It's like, Metroid's back. This story that started all the way back. We're finally in this 5th entry that's closing everything. It was never this.
I love how they said it was like going to be the end. It's not even the end. Dude.
I know, right? It starts as now into a new place.
Such a cock block. I thought for sure Samus was dying or something.
Really? Wow. So I really missed a lot of this discourse then. And I'm glad that I listened to what Alejandro you were saying with the guy that made the original God of War and how he's completely changed his tune after the writer of the article explained all of that to him, and he said, oh, I'm going to go back and play it and I feel like I'm going to enjoy it so much more, which unfortunately the internet being the internet is never going to see that part. They're just going to see a guy making a fool of himself. And I really resonated with what he was saying. I know he might have said it in a bit more of an aggressive and
he's like he's a brash dude. He likes combating. So
this is the guy that made the original God of War. I have full understanding of who this guy must be.
Yeah,
I'm
not gonna lie, I was never a fan of God of War 1. Like God of War 2 and 3 were good, but 1 was such a struggle bus, dog. Like
it's very obtuse. It has a very weird stuff that he accepts that he wishes he had done better.
That's why I laugh at him being like
the one.
Oh, that's true.
Because I'm just like, dude, you really can't throw a stone here.
And everyone pulled receipts on him for that. But I'm also thankful I didn't. That's the only thing I see other than the E3 reveal, which was the most hyped thing in the world. I remember because I never expected to ever play another 2D Metroid again like this. You kept calling, you kept wishing this into exterior.
No, I called it. I said after Samus Returns, I said there's no way. I said there's no way they just made a brand new engine for a random ass 3D remake on a 3DS at the end of its life where you'll never see that engine again. I said there's no way. Yeah. And then I like E3, they're like, what's gonna happen? And I called it, dude. I said 2D Metroid. I said it's either gonna come out around the same time as Metroid Prime 4, or it's gonna come out before to offset. And I'm so glad I called that.
And I'm glad we got it revealed, and we got it this year also. So it was like one of those nice surprises.
I would say Nintendo absolutely would do something like create an entire engine for a 3DS game at the end of its life cycle and just drop nothing about it afterwards.
Yeah, but like,
but good timeline there.
But for their big releases, they never did that, because you have to realize they did it for. We're talking. So let's look at Mario 3. Let's not even look at like end of life cycle, right? So Mario 3D Land, Mario 3D World. Let's talk about Link Between Worlds. They use the the Link's Awakening remake.
Oh yeah, it's literally the same.
True.
So the fact that they've done that for all of their large entries, and then they just recreate Metroid 2. It's Metroid 2, right?
Yeah, Metroid 2 is the Return of Samus, that they just named Samus Returns for this one.
Yeah, for them to remake that game, add more story to it, and fully develop, first off, bring on a brand new studio to work on this that haven't worked on a Metroid game ever before, to come in here and work on that, create a brand new engine from scratch, to put it in. They knew what they were doing, which I still think it's stupid they released it on the 3DS. It should have released on the Switch.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially in 2017. Imagine if that had been another one of those launch 2017 Switch games.
It would have done so well too.
Galaxy.
It would have done so well too, because genuinely, Samus Returns is a great game.
Yeah.
But
I've heard
it could have been my Samus.
You had a 3DS and you didn't play it.
I could see, that's the thing. I wasn't interested in Metroid at the time. I was
good luck getting it now. It's like $300.
That's the thing, though.
Fucking Prime Trilogy on Wii. At 300 if you don't have a Wii U.
I found a digital code on Amazon for $40, but I might also be able to get a physical copy for $20 at GameStop if I can find it. That's the trick.
Really? Find your buddies.
I'm gonna try.
See if you can
see if I can grease the right palms for that.
All right. Yeah, and play the game and sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I heard it's not 11 hours.
OLED Switch with.
Oh Lord. So yeah. Anyway, with all of that going on, I do understand, and I definitely appreciate your take on it, PJ, because that gives a lot more context to some things, and also the statement about the reaction time versus prediction and how much it really wants you to react. It doesn't want you to.
There's
predict.
A lot of reaction to it.
So I think
that's why I struggle the most in speedrunning.
It and even in the idea of speedrunning, with I think man, if I could understand before I played Metroid Dread that's how the game needs to be played and how it needs to be approached. Like I barely made it with I think Alejandro saying how even though it's short, it's made to be replayed. I was like, okay, well, I can respect that. And then when I found out how freaking hard it was, then I was just I got blasted.
I will promise you,
it gets easier. I can attest.
Have a hard time the second time.
And that's where I think it comes in, where each time you play any Metroid, even if you don't remember anything about it, I think that helps you with each other time you play any Metroid following it.
Agreed.
So if you can get somebody that's ever interested in it that says, hey, one day I want to play this Metroid game, like sit down with them, maybe not explain it all.
Beat one of them and you can play any of them.
Yeah, that's it. And I think if they can, just speaking for modern Nintendo right now, not talking about anything else that they've been doing because we could. If we talk about any of what they could do is either patch in an easy mode, just like anything to give you a little more health, give them a little less health will help, I think, immensely. Change nothing else. I'd be fine with it, I think.
Which, talking about Metroid and adding things,
what would you do to help the genre in general?
The genre, like, of Metroidvania?
Okay, let me clarify.
Metroid.
Start from, like, Metroid Dread, the series, and then maybe if you could, like, hit Grand Slam, what you would change about the genre. Let's hear that.
So one thing that made Metroid Dread stick for me that all the other Metroidvania games didn't for me is I absolutely love the linear progression of Metroid Dread without actually signposting anything.
Way better than it gets credit for. Like, dude, I can't imagine like
it's so good at that, and it's like something that just replaying the game every time makes me just enjoy the game even more. And I'm like, how is this game so good at this? And then I go play Hollow Knight, and they will tell you where to go,
and then they just leave you up to they leave you hang up to dry afterwards.
And it's so annoying. It's so annoying, and I feel like that's what every Metroidvania game does. And I think that's just like when you talk about Metroidvania, like just in that conversation, a lot of people talk it as a 2D exploratory like game. Like you have to explore to move forward. No, you don't. Look at Metroid Dread. Dude, like if you follow the momentum, your exploration is low. Like you don't have to explore a lot, but yet you still feel like you did explore because it made you feel like it, because it didn't tell you that it was sending you in a direction. It just did it.
It has great smokes and mirrors. It manages to do a great smoke and mirror of making you feel like free form exploration despite the momentum making it linear.
Yeah. Don't make me have to solve a giant freaking puzzle by going back to 4 maps ago to shoot one little door to find where I need to go, and don't signpost me to do it. Just let me progress through the game just through good game design. That's something that I have a problem with Metroidvania as a genre.
You know what game does that?
Okay.
I know Ori does.
No, this one.
Prime.
I was like, go all the way there.
Yeah. Which is actually what I was gonna. Which is Prime 4 is actually what I was about to bring up. Is that Prime 4, if it still does exist, which I think it does.
Oh, it is. They said so at the same Nintendo Direct that announced this. They were like, we're still making progression in Metroid Prime 4, but it's still way soft. Way for
that's my question. Have they ever announced that it's a new engine? I assume that it's gonna be. I think it's a given. It's gonna be a new engine.
It's gotta be, because if not, they should have pooped it up already. If they already had the previous engine.
So I'm so hoping, because in my opinion, the things that Metroid Dread and Samus Returns brought to 2D Metroid that I don't think you could go back on, like countering and full 3D, like
you can do it in first person,
like Aeon abilities or whatever, which never existed before Samus Returns. So like the speeding and then like boosting thing, all these other things like Aeon abilities, or that word or whatever, if I recall, was like,
it's where you press A, right? That you do the Mega Man like dash, right?
Yeah. All those things, like the scanning ability, all those are Aeon abilities, or I think is what they're called. Like those are something that I don't want them to ever take away. So I'm wondering, what are they going to add to Prime 4 that's going to move Prime as a series forward, rather than just giving me another Metroid Prime 3, which to be honest, going back and playing the Prime games, they're good games.
I can agree.
They're hard, like they're
obtuse,
hard, dude, and they're hard. Like, and if you go into them with the experience of modern first-person shooters, which in my instance, I was unlucky enough to play the living shit out of Halo 3 and then go play Prime 1. And I was like, this game sucks compared to the Halo 3.
You can't strafe, you have to like shoot with the A, the right stick is like
it's like playing it's like if you were to play, I mean, honestly, it's like playing any of the modern Resident Evil games and go and playing the old ones where you have to stand still to move. It's like when I went back to play 4 for my first time, because I played 5 before 4, and I played 5
and 6 before 4, basically.
Yeah. And I went back and played 4, and I played 5 in Revelations before 4. And Revelations
added movement.
Yeah. And so whenever I played 4 and you couldn't move, I was like, this game is hard. I was like, it's like that for me. So in a world where first-person shooters are so progressed, like granted, Metroid Prime, why it's different is that it's a first-person shooter in a Metroid setting, which it still has the Metroidvania like style puzzles and world exploration, which is exciting.
It's insane how much it translates the 2D Metroid to the 3D.
It's a first-person 3D platformer almost. It's pretty cool how they go about it. But are they going to take and I mean, dude, talking about shooters, they've now successfully made 3 Splatoons. The third one's gonna come out. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I would be shocked if the third one didn't do as good as the second one. They would have to remove half of the game
for that one.
Yeah, for the first one.
For the first one was on Wii U. The second one was on Switch.
Yeah,
like,
right.
And this third one's coming on to Switch. So like, if the only way they can screw up the third one is if they just decide to Nintendo Online it and make the second game, which was already really good, somehow worse. Which I just can't see them doing.
It's rare for a sequel to be that much worse unless you're going from 64 to Sunshine. Even though I love Sunshine.
It's gonna be worst case scenario. It's gonna be the same, you know. So like. So what I'm hoping, since it's been so long since Metroid Prime 3, which the Wii added a lot to the Prime series that I loved, now we're on the Switch. We still can do point and click, whatever. What are you going to bring? Are you going to make it more enjoyable to play? Are you going to bring more first-person shooter elements into the genre that it needed to begin with? Like to be able to like strafe and do all these other things? Or is it going to be stuck as a relic of its time and make me look at 2D Metroid as my favorable Metroid or way to experience Metroid, as Sonic has become for me, where you look at Sonic Mania, a phenomenal game, and then you look at Sonic Forces and I'm like, I've just given up on 3D Sonic. I love 2D Sonic. Screw 3D Sonic.
By the way, everyone go I want to plug him. Go watch his Sonic Unleashed 2021 video.
I think it's titled Sonic Unleashed isn't as good as you remember. And it triggered so many people.
I believe it.
It's so not good though. That
well,
game is
supposedly, so I'm really curious because if you read the rumor mill or kind of like the insider knowledge, the people that know Nintendo stuff and all that,
says that it's going to be remade.
The original Metroid Prime is they're doing a lot of work that's supposedly releasing in 2022. So it makes me wonder: are they going to keep
Trilogy?
No, that's the thing. It used to be Prime Trilogy, but now the rumor is it's just the first one for next year.
Oh boy.
Oh
yeah. So only one.
I wonder. What's the what's the reasonability that maybe they took like a very small section of the Metroid Prime 4 team to remake Metroid Prime 1 in the new engine,
to really learn it and kind of like get their feet wet to implement
and just kind of get feedback to put out that would be kind of cool. But if that's realistic, that means we might not be seeing Metroid Prime 4 to like
2025. Well, they restarted development in 19 because they started development in 2017 that wasn't retro.
But if they're remaking Metroid Prime 1, I doubt we would see 4 within a year time frame of the Metroid Prime 1 release. Just being, I mean, it can happen.
Unless they do the Resident Evil approach where they did remake 2 and then 7 or vice versa,
it was
whichever.
7 remake 2, remake 3, 8,
then 8.
So
but
then
they would split it, but well, I mean, it is still the RE engine, isn't it?
All of it,
that's true.
Yeah, it was like all 4 of those games are in the same engine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, then, you just use whatever they just made for Metroid Prime,
which is
4,
wild to think about.
And then they just
now imagine just this. Imagine if they make Metroid Prime 4, but it's entirely third person this time. Now, like a full 3D game.
I think people are gonna be
yeah,
be
because
really mad at that.
Prime
I
is
don't think
so
that-
it's so intrinsic
Yeah.
to like the first
I
person.
don't want another other M. I don't
Yeah.
want a third person shooter.
And that was Paul's first Metroid.
yeah.
I don't
which
even remember anything about it. I thought it was first person.
If you
no.
move these, if you had the controller is on the side, and if you put it like this, you go into first person to use missiles.
to missiles, yeah.
Yeah.
But then the platforming and all that were in 3D. Let's get back on track. Metroid Dread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Metroid Dread last boss. The only comment I'm going to give on that is that I really struggled with that boss the entire time. It took me a couple days. Once I beat it, I felt great. Now to finish on Paul's segment that he mentioned about like my opinion of what they could add to the 2D Metroid game, like just Metroid rather than the Metroidvania. I think Metroidvania is an easier one for me to hit because I've always had a bone to pick with that entire genre. And I think that it's specifically something that I'm so glad I played Dread, and Dread exists because it hooked me on the genre. Because it made me realize, like, oh, this is how good the genre can be. Because if I'm gonna be honest, I liked Fusion, but if I recall right, the first time I played Fusion, I liked it, but it didn't make me want to go play the other ones. I was like, I'm glad I beat a Metroid game. That was a really good game. And
to be fair, there was no way to play the other ones unless you had to like dig back up.
There was.
So.
I had Super Metroid on my SNES, and I never.
Oh, okay, then that makes sense. I didn't.
Yeah. And I also had a Wii U, so I had all.
The Wii U, the only place where you can get all these stupid games, including the Prime Trilogy. Yes, is that really haunts me because it's $20 there, and you want that this is $300.
Yeah. So speaking of Prime Trilogy,
Yeah,
guess who got it? Anyways, that's how I played it. Yeah. So Metroid Dread overall, I think it's a great shining star for what the Metroidvania genre can achieve in the way of level design and boss design and such like that. I think there's a lot of things that it can improve on, but I feel like just level design and progression in Metroid Dread is a prime example of why, and not even just in Metroid Dread, Metroid Fusion does it really well too. And I'm gonna be honest, there's some moments in Samus Returns that is just like this too. And even like for its time, Super Metroid is the golden star of its time, right? Like it shows tried and true why over and over and over again, like somehow with different developers, Metroid just hits the mark. Like it may not get 10 out of 10 every time, but on
it's
the 2D,
it's an influence. It's an absolute influence.
It's the reason why it's the first half of Metroidvania. You know, like and I feel like now, since because it's been 19 years since the last like traditional new 2D Metroid game, right?
Yeah.
2002.
Yeah.
I was freaking 9 years old.
Yeah. So to a lot of people that are like, well, Metroid isn't the best Metroidvania anymore. It was like, yeah, it's been 19 years. The genre has progressed for so long, but in how I'm looking at it is it's progressed for so long without its dad. And now the dad's come back and he's like, this is what it should be. And now everything else can look at it and be like, okay, we're going to make this better.
Yeah, and to be fair, like,
comparison.
And to be fair to them, because of the way the genre has progressed in the little things, now comes the dad to show how it can progress in like the big things.
Yeah. And now everyone can nitpick from it, you know? Like, so take the level design in Metroid Dread, please. Somebody learn how to replicate that. In some of the best moments in Metroid Dread. Also, like, I know a lot of people don't like the Emmys. I think the Emmys are a great addition.
I like them. They're fun.
So cool. Like, they get annoying after so long. But like, what other Metroidvania game do you have? Like, I'm trying to recall. Like, I mean, I guess Metroid Fusion sort of, but like
SAX.
Yeah, but like
very minimal compared to the Emmy.
But not in the way in the Emmys where the entire map revolves around like getting through their areas. That's so cool. Like, I want more of that. Like, I guess Hollow Knight, or is it Ori? Ori that has the
eagle that pursues you. Yeah, Ori. Yeah, the owl pursues you.
Like that's cool, but it's not as Emmy-esque where it's like a part of the map every time you go back. It's like I want that.
It's
like,
very scripted. Cool. Yeah, in Ori is very scripted. It only happens like 2 or 3 times that you have to like dodge the big eagle there.
Or is it an eagle?
No, it's an owl. Yeah, the big owl.
Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much my point. I feel like Metroidvania as a genre can learn from Metroid Dread, and I think Metroid Dread can look at whatever they should look at what everyone else will do for the next 5 years and then progress on that.
Absolutely,
like
especially because it's
adding
selling
easy
now.
mode. Add an easy mode. Don't just do Metroid Dread 2. Do Metroid Dread 2 but better, you know, or Metroid Dread but better. Learn from the high points of Hollow Knight. Learn from the high points of the new Ori game, whatever comes out. Or did it come out, the second one?
Yeah, Will of the Wisps. I prefer the first one just in a theme perspective, but the second one was an improvement as a video game.
Okay.
So,
I've only played the first one a little bit, so
it's on Game Pass, so I would recommend you. It's a fun one. So especially now that you're kind of like in the idea of like a Metroidvania, I would recommend. Same to you, Paul.
Check it
if you
out.
can get it on the Game Pass because you have an Xbox working now.
I know.
So, and any further thoughts, final thoughts you want to say, Paul, before we wrap it up?
I agree with a lot of what PJ was saying, exactly along those lines, where Metroid started an entire genre and it's kind of been out of the game at this point. This is its option. This is its crossroads, absolutely, with Metroid Dread. I mean, Samus, you could argue Samus Returns was sort of that, but because it was on the 3DS, so close to the end of its lifestyle. Exactly. Like, even me, who might have at some point, I kind of missed out on that. Yeah, exactly. So with Metroid Dread being my point into the series, I'm going to absolutely be a lot more understanding of anything after this point, but I think what Metroid Dread needs to do, and Nintendo itself needs to look at everything else that has made the genre so powerful at this point, needs to learn everything that's going to come after Metroid Dread, and then input the best of it into its sequel. And I think that's where it's really going to reach its stride, for me personally, and for any other newcomers into the series, because I would love to sit down and say, anybody that wants to get into a Metroid, say, this is it. But I struggle to that because, for me personally, I struggle with the game language. I struggled with the reactionary timing, and especially for people that, I mean, I don't want to be the grandpa situation, but like as we get older, it's a lot harder to do some of these things. And I think that's where the accessibility options of just giving us a little more health, giving them a little less health, or giving a little bit more of an open opportunity, maybe not for like the counters, because for the most part, the counters in every point in the gameplay is perfect.
We're doable.
I would miss it, and it would still count me as countering, and I'm like, yes, thank you, God. And then like the Emmys, you're not really supposed to be able to counter those, but they give you that tiny little window just to give you that option.
They
so
give
like
you
I respect it,
like any at all,
because the whole point is you're not supposed to get into those situations in the first place. It's like a last resort. And honestly, just like you said, I honestly really like the Emmys. I never had a struggle except for the blue one, where I could not find the positioning to get it just right. And then when I finally got it, I realized I had to get it on the grappling hook and then snipe it practically.
So cool. That was so much fun.
That I felt really good, like what y'all said, with the rewarding nature of the most difficult moments of that game. So yeah, that's really where I'll
I do need to mention one thing, because I know we're wrapping up here, and I'll make this under a minute. So we mentioned that Metroid has been gone for so long. It's the dad of the genre. It's spawned a genre, and all these kids are running around creating their own lives and making themselves enjoyable to other people and creating new things. Something that Nintendo always does, and something that they've like you cannot even deny, is that they don't like copying. They like originality. Always. And even if it means creating the weirdest freaking console like the Wii, they want to do something that stands out. And I feel like if they look at every other game and they implement it too much, it's not going to be Nintendo anymore. So I want them to look at what everyone else is doing and then be like, okay, how can we differentiate from that, but also inspire from this, rather than just doing it, you know?
And I would even add, like, the things that matters, the game. They're so superior to any other Metroidvania game in so many ways that the only thing they even have to copy is just UI. Literally, it's like the tiny things. Do that better. You got your easy 10. Like you got it all there, and add the easy mode. And I would. I would that is like, this is such an excellent game that I'm glad it has all these perspectives of the people that are new to them, that had to like run their head against the wall because it's a language that they may not even know, but understanding that you can find some sort of understanding in it, and then seeing how not newcomers but kind of like old timers like me and Peter that have had some experience with this series understand its language and kind of pick it from there and understand how great it is, and knowing the things that can be improved in the little things, just shows that they got something here. They got a great base that
it's original. It's probably the most original Metroidvania game since Ori and Hollow Knight. And that speaks for Nintendo in strides.
Yeah, and to me personally, the
something
emotional resonance of the story that Ori told really hit me in a way that still remains like my all-time favorite Metroidvania. But I cannot deny how good Metroid Dread is, and even with all its faults and the things that I know it can do better, I can't wait to...
Stripping all story away, Dread is just an enjoyable game to just speed run or just run through and just be
absolutely. It's such a good-ass game. And with that, I say we conclude our good discussion about Metroid Dread. Paul, PJ, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter is the main thing that I'm plugging at the moment, at I'm Jayohkay. I am Jayohkay. I'm also on Twitch by the same name, I'm Jayohkay. If you want to see the game speedrun, that's a great way to follow me. Watch me speedrun the game. I'm loving showing people what you can do with this game that they had no idea that you could do with, like breaking through walls that you shouldn't be able to break through and clipping through, and not even fighting the first Emmy. You can just skip it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to fight it. You don't even have to kill it. You just walk right past it. Oh, done.
And then you can find...
Where are you?
Yeah, they can find me @_Dork Segovia on Twitter, Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, the Slayer Giant on Twitch, and Paul, where can people find you?
Dork of Art. That's all you need.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Screw you soon.
So Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah.
The expansion pass.
So what the heck, right?
Yeah, so it came out today. For anyone who's wondering when we're recording this, it came out today. And just a quick little thing that's like going on with this game. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head that there's a few things that I know that the screen up. So overall broad expectation, games aren't running well. They're not running well at all. They're struggling to run, period. Like for instance, I think The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is like it's now known as the worst way to play that game.
Yeah, which is insanity. That like the most modern way you can play Ocarina of Time.
It's the worst way to play it. Yeah, it's insane. Don't even get me started on
Mario Kart.
On Mario Kart. You can't even save in Mario Kart.
What's the point of saving your scores? Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't save because it says you don't have the expansion thing in your the save
your controller
drive in your N64. It thinks you're playing it on a legit Nintendo 64. But they didn't even really use a real emulator that fakes that it has one of those things that allow you to. I was like, it's so dumb. And don't even get me started on the fact that all these games are unplayable. But then if you try to play with your friends online internationally. Dude, did you just watch that video?
Yeah, absolutely. When I saw it, I was like, I knew already Nintendo Online was so bad, and this is like adding even more, more sherry on top of the crap.
It's not even the fact that you can't connect with your friends. It's the fact that somehow the audio is slowed down and choppy. So when it sounds Super Mario Kart, it sounds like Satan himself gargling.
Mario Kart.
Yeah, Super Mario Kart. Yeah, it's really creepy, straight up creepy pasta shit. It's wild. It's wild.
And the good thing is only I was gonna say this would have been acceptable if it had just been there's just $10 more to the base service that we have, but no, it has to be $50 and
not $50 more, not $50 more, not $50.
Yeah, just more total. It's $30 more if you're already
$30 more. Yeah,
and I don't even know if you have a way to if you already pay your year, can you just add the 30 and you're good?
Okay. You can. Yep. You can subsidize. So they'll look at how much of the year that you've actually used, and then you could pay the part that you've used and the new payment for another year to start.
Okay. And that's the thing, for only 9 games right now. And that's the thing,
bad.
It's
and the games aren't even playable, dude. They're so bad.
I'm such a the whole input lag thing. I saw the video of someone doing it was Zach that posted it. It was just
the auto flip.
The auto flip. That's 2 seconds. It's that breaks you. Yeah. It's
oh my god.
Zelda's about precision. There's so much precision that you want to get in that game with that. Oh,
imagine buying a game and they not let you save on it. That's what blows my mind. Imagine having Mario Kart 64 and that's so
here's my speed running record. Sorry, we can't record that because you don't have a memory card.
You can't do anything. It's so dumb, dude. It doesn't make up. $30. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. We gotta hope that they fix this. They have to, because the NES and SNES wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. Those games were playable. They were.
If they put out any games that were worth playing, god dang, dude. Yeah. All the games that they release now are I've never heard of this game. What is this game?
Wingback, or never heard of that one.
So they're like, these are the future games we have coming to Nintendo 64, and watch those games that they showed be the only good ones that they're going to put. All the other ones are going to be games you've never heard of, and you're like, wow.
Kind of like what's been happening with the SNES and NES. It's like, what is this thing? Like that's it feels like borrowed battle scraping. And
the only reason why I can see this being of value, which it isn't of right now, in my personal opinion, if you buy the expansion pass right now, you are stupid. Don't.
Yeah, you're just throwing money away. You're literally throwing money away.
The only reason why you should buy this is if they confirm that future DLC packs will be coming to that. So on one purchase a year, you get to have all Nintendo DLC.
Like for the next, let's say, for the Breath of the Wild, like the expansion packs that they release for that. If they do the same for
they put that on there,
like
and Animal Crossing, like they don't rotate them out. If they rotate them out, I'm gonna be pissed. Yeah, because that's some Nintendo shit that they would do.
Oh yeah.
But if they just keep adding all the DLC, and like if you just pay us $30 a year, you can continuously use all of these DLCs. That's dope. Perfect. Honestly, because no one has a subscription service for all DLC. That's a great idea. If new content comes out for your favorite games on Nintendo and it only costs $30 a year, I would do it.
Yes, and if the libraries are more like the N64 library gets more robust, and let's just say they finally added GBA
N64, and I'd be happy.
Yeah, no, literally, if that was the thing,
if it was just DLC, I would spend $30 personally. But for just Animal Crossing, bullshit.
Yeah, if just that, and then it's just imagine they rotate that out and no more DLC, and it remains $50. That would be the biggest kick in the balls of everyone.
Like, and what the hell happens if you get Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass instead of just buying the DLC outright, which you can, by the way, a lot of people aren't talking about. You can buy the DLC for $25. Not that difficult.
Yeah, because everyone's been like breaking it down. It's like, okay, it's $50. The thing's already $25. That expansion for Animal Crossing for $5 more, I get the N64 games. So
yeah.
So it's like, if that's true, then why didn't Nintendo offer a $25 a year thing?
What happens if you don't buy the DLC but you play the DLC and then your year-long subscription runs out? Do you lose your data, or do you just not have access to it?
Imagine for Animal Crossing, because I haven't played that game, but from what I heard, it's like all this DLC is gonna have all these little things that you can add to things you already have in your game.
It's insane. It's literally Happy Home Designer 2. It's a sequel to another game that they're just adding as DLC. That's dope. That's so cool.
Yeah, but now imagine if it goes all left behind and everything just disappears because you were renting it and you stopped paying for the thing, and Nintendo would be the one to
repossess all of your stuff in the game.
Oh man,
Tom Nook comes and just repossesses everything.
Yeah, but what you said, like I can kind of see like everyone justifying renting the DLC if it's like a rotating thing for all the big Nintendo games going forward.
If it's just
moving
forward, add all the DLC.
Like all stacked, like they haven't cycled out any NES or SNES game. Yeah. Everything has been stacking up. So,
so like, give me the new Breath of Wild stuff. Give me Splatoon DLC. Give me all these other DLCs, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll bite now. But if it's just like we have N64 and Genesis, and now for $100 a year you can play GameCube games.
I bet you that's gonna happen. Everyone's like that, because we had that discussion with Paul in that. It was in the episode you were not. Imagine if the reason that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have not been given the HD treatment of the Wii that everyone says is happening is because they're gonna offer it to you as in the Nintendo Online GameCube service for extra money.
It's extra money on top of the. It's not even the expansion pass. It's like, what would they even call it? Expansion pass plus?
Oh yeah, or the disc. Because what was the GameCube have? No, because the N64 had the expansion pack that you put there. Yeah. So
GameCube had the Game Boy Advance thing that you can plop on the bottom, whatever that's called. Like they just call it that.
And also the cable where you can play as Tingle and Wind Waker. If you had a GBA,
the Game Boy cable, the Game Boy Link,
man, I tell you, I've had quite hilarious time reading, like seeing how and let's not even talk about the stupid controller mapping. Do you see the picture of like how they decided to map the controller for the N64? They give you only the two yellow ones in XY, and then everything's
on the bottom. It's man.
It's like, man.
I'm glad I didn't pre-purchase this, is all I'm saying. I'm so glad I didn't pre-purchase this. And And speaking of little quick Nintendo things, last thing I want to mention, the new Mario Party game looks amazing.
The Mario Party
Mario
Superstars, right?
That looks amazing. But they brought back the tug of war game with the original control scheme. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, the only thing they changed is it includes a warning saying "Don't rotate on the palm of your hand." Is all it says.
Wait for Nintendo to get rid of and all these Joy-Cons to be
people are tweeting at Nintendo with their Nintendo Switch Online 64 controllers saying, "Can't wait to play Tug of War in a couple months by rotating my palm around."
And if the quality of the Joy-Con stick is any indication, the stick that they put in this new
so
N64.
many Joy-Cons are about to drift, dog. So many Joy-Cons are about to drift.
If they're not already drifting with Metroid Dread, if they didn't play that game with a Pro Controller like you should play it with a Pro Controller. Oh man, that's
so funny to me.
God bless Nintendo for giving us so much hilarity today over their stupidity.
Yeah. Oh my god, they were like, on top of them bringing back that, which was the dumbest thing. Like, you could have Tug of War, but change the control scheme. How hard would it be to have whoever can hit a certain button the fastest?
I can do this.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I can do this.
That's all it is. Like, what the heck, dude?
Look how quick my finger is. Like, I can do this with my finger.
That's all it should be. Yeah. It should be a mashing game, not a rotating game. They didn't even change the game. And on top of that, they're like, hey, guess what? The Nintendo Switch Online thing you're really looking forward to, guess what? It sucks ass. Like,
oh man. It's like Nintendo knows how to like, and what's funny is that they're so brazen about it. They just don't give a
dude, the worst part about Nintendo is that like they make it so hard to love them, right? Because like they do set like I mentioned earlier.
They have the best games. They have some of the best games.
They have some of the best games because they are the most original when it comes to games. Like, they won't look at other people and implement. They take their own things and they implement their own ideas on top of things that have previously done well for them.
Yeah, when they're following, they're not as good. When they're just trying to see, which was the problem in the GameCube era. They were trying to follow the others before trying to carve out.
Agreed. And just in general, Nintendo makes some of the best games, but they have the absolute worst services. Absolute worst. And it's so terrible that there's some online experiences on the Wii and on the DS that were more functional. Let me give you a very quick example, and I'm out of here. So let me give you a quick example, and I'm out of here, how bad the new Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass is. So you cannot play internationally on Mario Kart 64 on the Switch without it freaking out. But like, if they shut down the servers now, or it was peer-to-peer. But anyways, they shut it down now. But back in the day, I could get on my Nintendo DS, not 3DS, Nintendo DS, and play Mario Kart DS internationally with zero lag on Wi-Fi. Yeah. And you're telling me that you can't do that on the Switch? Bullshit. I'm done.
We're done. Screw you, Nintendo.